Hey guys. Here is what if Naruto had a healing factor. What if Naruto was in Team Guy? What if he learned taijutsu and the 8 inner gates? Will his body be able to handle it? Hit like and subscribe if you like this one. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 1, The Assignment. The morning sun cast long shadows through the windows of the Hokage's office, illuminating dust motes that danced lazily in the warm air. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, sat behind his desk with a weathered pipe clenched between his teeth, the sweet tobacco smoke curling upward in thin ribbons. Before him lay a single scroll, its contents already memorized, its implications still being weighed. 3 photographs stared up at him from the open document. Rock Lee, the boy who could not mold chakra for ninjutsu or genjutsu, a disability that would have ended most shinobi careers before they began. Tenten, the weapons specialist with dreams of becoming like Tsunade of the Sannin. And Naruto Uzumaki, the village pariah, the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, and bearer of perhaps the most unusual Kekkai Genkai Hiruzen had ever encountered. The old Hokage exhaled a long stream of smoke and leaned back in his chair. Through the window behind him, he could see the carved faces of his predecessors watching over the village, his own face among them, a reminder of the weight he carried. Today, that weight felt particularly heavy. A knock at the door interrupted his contemplation. Enter. The door swung open, and the man who stepped through seemed to bring his own personal son with him. Mike Guy strode into the office with the confidence of someone who had never once questioned his place in the world. His green jumpsuit was immaculate, his bowl-cut hair gleaming with what Hiruzen suspected was an unhealthy amount of styling product, and his smile could have blinded lesser men. Lord Hokage! Guy's voice boomed through the office like a thunderclap. Konoha's sublime green beast of prey has arrived, burning with the flames of youth and ready to receive your wisdom. Hiruzen allowed himself a small smile. Say what you would about Might Guy, and many did, often while questioning his sanity, but the man's enthusiasm was as genuine as it was relentless. In a village full of cynics and skeptics, Guy's unwavering optimism was something to be treasured. Guy. Thank you for coming so promptly. Please sit. Guy dropped into the chair across from the Hokage's desk with surprising grace for a man who seemed perpetually on the verge of explosion. His thick eyebrows, caterpillars that had apparently taken up permanent residence on his forehead, drew together in uncharacteristic seriousness. Your message said it was urgent, Lord Hokage, and that it concerned team assignments. Guy's voice had dropped several decibels, a sure sign that he understood the gravity of the situation. Has there been a problem with Lee or Tenten? No problems, Guy. Quite the opposite, in fact. Your students have performed admirably in their first months as genin. Hiruzen tapped his pipe against the ashtray on his desk, dislodging a small cascade of gray ash. However, there has been a development that requires us to adjust the composition of your team. Guy's expression flickered through surprise, concern, and finally settled on intense curiosity. Adjust, Lord Hokage? Instead of answering directly, Hiruzen slid the scroll across the desk. Read this. Then we will discuss. Guy took the scroll with the reverence one might show a sacred text. His eyes moved across the document with the focus of a predator, absorbing every detail, every implication. As he read, his expression transformed, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally something that looked remarkably like wonder. This boy, Guy said slowly, setting down the scroll. Naruto Uzumaki. His healing ability is unprecedented. Hiruzen finished. We've monitored him since birth, as you know. The Nine-Tails chakra has always granted him faster recovery than normal children, but this... He shook his head. This is something else. Something that emerged gradually over the years and has only recently manifested in its full capacity. Guy was silent for a long moment, an event rare enough to be noteworthy in itself. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. The medical report says he regrew a finger. In less than 3 hours. After a training accident with a kunai. Hiruzen's eyes were grave. The medics were beside themselves. They'd never seen anything like it. Cellular regeneration at a rate that defies everything we understand about human biology. And unlike the Kyuubi's healing, this ability doesn't seem to draw on chakra at all. His reserves remain completely unaffected during recovery. A healing factor. Guy murmured, the term borrowed from obscure medical texts he'd studied during his own quest for physical perfection. Operating at the cellular level. Lord Hokage, do you realize what this means? I believe I'm beginning to. Hiruzen rose from his chair and moved to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. From this vantage point, he could see the academy training grounds far below, where a dozen small figures were going through their morning exercises. Tell me, Guy, what is the primary limitation of the 8 inner gates? Guy's breath caught. For a man who had dedicated his entire existence to taijutsu, who had pushed his body beyond every conceivable limit in pursuit of the ultimate physical technique, the answer was painfully obvious. The damage, he said. Opening the gates grants tremendous power, but at the cost of destroying your own body. Torn muscles, shattered bones, ruptured blood vessels. And if you open the 8th gate... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Death, Hiruzen said softly. Absolute, unavoidable death. The technique burns through your life force like paper through flame. He turned back to face Guy, and there was something ancient in his eyes, the weight of decades spent sending young people to their deaths in service of the village. But what if that limitation could be overcome? Guy rose from his chair so quickly that it toppled backward. His eyes were wide, his powerful frame trembling with barely contained energy. You're saying, Lord Hokage, are you saying that this boy... I'm saying that Naruto Uzumaki may be the only person in the history of the shinobi world capable of mastering the 8 inner gates without sacrificing his life. Hiruzen's voice was calm, measured, but beneath it lay a current of something that might have been hope. The question is, are you willing to teach him? The silence that followed was deafening. Guy stood frozen, his mind racing through possibilities that he had never allowed himself to consider. The 8 inner gates were his legacy, his life's work, a brutal, beautiful art form that demanded everything and gave nothing back but fleeting moments of godlike power. He had accepted long ago that the technique would eventually kill him, had made peace with that knowledge in the quiet hours before dawn when doubt crept in. But now... Why me? Guy asked finally. Surely there are other instructors who could. None with your expertise, Hiruzen interrupted. And none who I would trust with this responsibility. He moved back to his desk and picked up one of the photographs, Naruto's grinning face, all bright blue eyes and whisker marks and defiant optimism. This boy has been alone his entire life, Guy. Shunned by a village that sees only the demon inside him, never the child who contains it. He has no family, no friends, no one to guide him toward his potential. What about Kakashi's team? I understood the plan was to place the Uzumaki boy with the Uchiha survivor. Hiruzen shook his head. That was the original intention, yes. Kakashi's Sharingan could potentially help contain the Nine Tails if the seal ever weakened. But circumstances have changed. He set down the photograph and met Guy's eyes directly. Sasuke Uchiha requires specialized attention. His psychological state following the massacre demands a handler who can address his unique needs. And frankly, I believe Kakashi's talents would be wasted on Naruto. Guy's eyebrows shot upward. Wasted? Naruto's chakra control is abysmal. His aptitude for ninjutsu is similarly poor. The basic academy techniques give him tremendous difficulty, and anything requiring fine manipulation is essentially beyond him. Hiruzen allowed himself a slight smile. But his physical capabilities are extraordinary, even setting aside his healing factor. Stamina, endurance, pain tolerance, all off the charts. He's a taijutsu natural, Guy. He just doesn't know it yet. The pieces were falling into place now, and Guy felt his heart beginning to pound with that familiar rhythm, the drumbeat of anticipation that preceded every great challenge. A student who could survive the gates. A boy who needed guidance, purpose, belonging. A chance to pass on everything he had learned, everything he was, without the bitter knowledge that his teachings would eventually destroy their recipient. It was, Guy realized, the opportunity of a lifetime. But there were still questions. Lee, he said. How will this affect Lee? Hiruzen nodded approvingly. I thought you might ask that. Your concern for your students does you credit. He returned to his chair and steepled his fingers. Lee's situation is different, but not incompatible. He cannot use the gates with Naruto's impunity, of course, but having a training partner who can push him without fear of permanent injury could accelerate his development significantly. And... He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Lee has struggled with isolation as well, has he not? The other students mocked him for his inability to perform ninjutsu. They did, Guy confirmed, and there was steel in his voice now. But he has proven them wrong at every turn. His flames of youth burn brighter than any technique. Indeed. And that is precisely why I believe he and Naruto could benefit from one another. Two boys rejected by their peers, finding strength and purpose together. Hiruzen's eyes crinkled with something approaching warmth. It would be a shame to waste such an opportunity. Guy was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant, his mind working through scenarios and possibilities and potential pitfalls. Finally, he spoke. When do I meet him? The academy training ground was empty when Naruto arrived, which was probably for the best. He'd received the summons that morning, a curt, official-looking scroll delivered by a faceless ANBU operative who had vanished before Naruto could even ask what it was about. The message had been simple: report to Training Ground 3 at noon. Come alone. Naruto had been early, of course. He was always early when it came to anything involving his shinobi career. It was the one thing he took seriously, the one dream he refused to compromise on no matter how many times the world tried to crush it out of him. He would become Hokage. He would make them all acknowledge him. And if that meant showing up to mysterious meetings 30 minutes ahead of schedule, then so be it. The training ground itself was unremarkable, a clearing surrounded by dense forest, with a few wooden posts for target practice and a small stream running along the eastern edge. Naruto had trained here dozens of times during his academy days, usually alone, usually after the other students had gone home. The solitude had never bothered him. He'd grown used to it long ago. What did bother him was the waiting. Naruto was not, by nature, a patient person. His leg bounced incessantly as he sat on one of the training posts, his eyes scanning the tree line for any sign of whoever had summoned him. His headband, still shiny and new, a symbol of everything he'd worked for, gleamed in the afternoon sun. Come on, he muttered under his breath. What's taking so long? This better not be some kind of joke. Dynamic entry! The voice came from directly above him, and Naruto had approximately half a second to register this fact before something green and extremely fast descended from the sky and slammed into the ground where he had been sitting. He threw himself backward on pure instinct, his academy training kicking in just in time to avoid being flattened. The impact sent up a plume of dust and debris. When it cleared, Naruto found himself staring at possibly the most extraordinary human being he had ever encountered. The man was tall, not unusually so, but his presence made him seem enormous. He stood in a perfect horse stance, one fist extended toward where Naruto had been sitting, his green jumpsuit pristine despite having just cratered a significant portion of the training ground. His hair was shaped into a perfect bowl cut, his eyebrows were things of legend, and his smile. Naruto had seen a lot of smiles in his 12 years of life. Fake smiles from villagers who wished he would just disappear. Pitying smiles from the few who understood what he carried. Cruel smiles from bullies who saw an easy target. But this smile was different. This smile was real, and warm, and somehow slightly terrifying in its intensity. Naruto Uzumaki! The man boomed, straightening from his stance with fluid grace. At last we meet! I am Might Guy, Konoha's sublime green beast of prey, and from this day forward, I will be your Jonin instructor. Naruto's brain, which had been struggling to process the last 10 seconds of his life, finally caught up to the present moment. Wait, what? He scrambled to his feet, brushing dirt from his orange jumpsuit. Instructor? But they said the team assignments have been changed. Guy struck a pose that seemed to involve pointing at the sky while simultaneously flexing every muscle in his body. The Hokage himself has seen your potential, young Naruto, and has determined that your flames of youth burn too brightly to be contained by conventional instruction. My flames of what? Guy's smile, impossibly, grew even wider. Youth, Naruto! The burning spirit of youth that drives us to surpass our limits. I can see it in you, the determination, the passion, the refusal to surrender no matter what obstacles stand in your way. He dropped into a crouch, bringing himself to Naruto's eye level, and his voice became suddenly, startlingly serious. The Hokage told me about your healing ability. About what you can do. Naruto's expression shuddered immediately, his guard coming up like a steel wall. Most of the village's hatred toward him was general, unfocused. They despised him for what he contained without really understanding the specifics. But anyone who knew about his unusual healing was either a high-ranking official or a medical professional, and neither group had ever treated him with anything but clinical detachment. So what? He said, and there was defiance in his voice now. You gonna run experiments on me too? Hook me up to machines and try to figure out how it works? Something flickered in Guy's eyes, something that might have been pain. No, Naruto. I'm going to teach you how to use it. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Naruto stared at the strange man in green, searching for the catch, the hidden agenda, the inevitable betrayal. He'd learned young that kindness always came with conditions, that no one offered anything for free. Why? He demanded. Why would you want to teach me anything? Guy rose to his full height, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. Because I see a young man who has been told his entire life that he is worthless. That he is a demon, a monster, something to be feared and hated. And I see those lies for what they are. He placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, a gesture that made the boy flinch, unaccustomed as he was to human contact. You are not a monster, Naruto Uzumaki. You are a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village. And with proper guidance, you could become one of the greatest taijutsu practitioners this world has ever seen. Naruto's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. No sound came out. No one had ever said anything like that to him before. Not once, in 12 years of living. The old man Hokage had been kind, yes, had protected him, provided for him, treated him with something approaching grandfatherly affection. But even he had never looked at Naruto and seen potential. Naruto's voice cracked. He swallowed hard, forcing down the sudden burning in his eyes. You really mean that? I never say anything I do not mean. Guy's voice boomed out again, the serious moment giving way to his characteristic enthusiasm. And to prove it, I shall make you a promise. If I cannot turn you into a taijutsu master within 1 year, I will run 500 laps around Konoha on my hands while reciting the shinobi code backward. Despite himself, despite the confusion and suspicion and desperate hope warring in his chest, Naruto felt a laugh building in his throat. That's the weirdest punishment I've ever heard. Then you have not trained with me long enough. Guy clapped him on the back with enough force to stagger a normal person. Naruto barely felt it. Come, young Naruto! It is time to meet your teammates. Teammates? Naruto blinked. Wait, I have teammates? Of course. A youthful shinobi cannot blossom in isolation. You will be joining my current team, which consists of 2 of the most promising young ninja in all of Konoha. Guy began marching toward the forest edge, clearly expecting Naruto to follow. Rock Lee and Tenten. They have been training under me for several months already, and they are most eager to meet you. Naruto hurried to catch up, his mind spinning. This was nothing like what he'd expected. He'd been prepared for Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, prepared for a team with Sasuke, his bitter rival, and probably Sakura or one of the other academy graduates. Instead, he'd gotten this. A man who dressed like a tree and smiled like the sun and made promises that sounded insane but somehow felt genuine. It was weird. It was confusing. And somewhere, in the deepest part of Naruto's heart, in the place where he kept the dreams he was too afraid to speak aloud, it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Rock Lee was doing push-ups when they arrived at the secondary training ground. Not ordinary push-ups, one-arm push-ups with a boulder balanced on his back, counting each repetition in a voice that never wavered despite the obvious strain. 347. 348. 349. Nearby, a girl with her brown hair tied up in twin buns was hurling kunai at a target with machine-like precision. Each throw found the bullseye, and she moved through her arsenal with the fluid grace of someone who had been doing this for years. Both of them looked up as Guy emerged from the tree line with Naruto in tow. Guy-sensei! Lee's boulder crashed to the ground as he sprang to his feet, snapping to attention with military precision. You have returned? And this must be your new teammate. Guy swept his arm toward Naruto like a ringmaster introducing the main attraction. Naruto Uzumaki, meet Rock Lee and Tenten. Lee Tenten, meet Naruto. There was a moment of silence as the 3 genin regarded each other. Tenten's expression was curious but guarded, her brown eyes assessing Naruto with the calculating stare of someone who was used to measuring threats. Lee, on the other hand, was practically vibrating with excitement, his round eyes shining with an enthusiasm that rivaled their teacher's. Naruto Uzumaki! Lee bounded forward and seized Naruto's hand in both of his own, shaking it vigorously. I have heard of you. You are the one who defeated Mizuki-sensei with the shadow clone technique, yes? That was most impressive. Naruto blinked, caught off guard by the warmth of the greeting. Yeah, that was me. How'd you know about that? News travels fast in shinobi circles, Tenten said, approaching more cautiously. Her eyes flicked over Naruto's orange jumpsuit with barely concealed judgment. Though I have to say, I wasn't expecting someone so colorful. What's wrong with orange? Naruto demanded, immediately defensive. Orange is a great color. For a target, maybe. Tenten's lips quirked in something that might have been a smile. We'll have to work on your stealth wardrobe. My wardrobe is fine. And who asked you anyway? Children. Guy's voice cut through the brewing argument like a blade. Save your youthful bickering for later. For now, we must discuss the future of Team Guy. He gestured for them to gather around, and the 3 genin formed a loose semicircle in front of their teacher. Lee stood at rigid attention, Tenten crossed her arms and cocked her hip, and Naruto fidgeted impatiently, still not entirely sure what was happening. As you know, Guy began, his tone taking on an uncharacteristic gravity. I selected Lee and Tenten because I saw in them the potential for greatness. Lee, despite being unable to use ninjutsu or genjutsu, has dedicated himself to the path of taijutsu with a fervor that inspires all who witness it. Tenten has mastered the art of weaponry to a degree far beyond her years. Together you have become a formidable team. But now we're adding a third member? Tenten asked, her skepticism evident. No offense, Guy-sensei, but we've been working together for months. Throwing someone new into the mix could disrupt our whole dynamic. A valid concern, Guy acknowledged. Which is why I must explain the circumstances of Naruto's assignment to our team. He paused, his gaze sweeping over all three of them. What I am about to tell you is classified information. It is not to be shared with anyone outside this group. Is that understood? The shift in atmosphere was immediate. Lee straightened even further, if that were possible. Tenten's skepticism gave way to sharp focus. Even Naruto stopped fidgeting, sensing that something important was about to be revealed. Naruto possesses a unique ability, Guy continued. A healing factor that operates at the cellular level. His body can regenerate from virtually any injury in a fraction of the time it would take a normal person. Lee's eyes went wide. A healing factor? Like the legendary. Nothing like the legends, Guy interrupted. This is something new. The Hokage himself has authorized Naruto's transfer to our team because of this ability. He looked directly at Lee, and there was something almost apologetic in his expression. You understand what this means, Lee? For a long moment, Lee was silent. Then, slowly, his expression shifted, from surprise to understanding to something that looked almost like hope. The 8 inner gates, he breathed. You're going to teach him the 8 inner gates. Naruto frowned. But what now? Tenten, who had been processing this information with the analytical mind of a weapons specialist, suddenly understood as well. Her eyes widened. Guy-sensei, that technique, the damage it causes, would kill any normal person who attempted to master it. Guy confirmed. But Naruto is not a normal person. His healing factor means he could potentially survive opening the gates, could practice the technique without risking permanent injury. He smiled, but it was a serious smile, without his usual manic energy. He could become the first shinobi in history to truly master the 8 inner gates. The weight of that statement settled over the training ground like a heavy blanket. Lee's hands were trembling, whether from excitement or some other emotion, it was impossible to tell. Tenten looked like she was rapidly recalculating everything she thought she knew about their team's potential. And Naruto. Naruto was lost. Hold on, he said, raising a hand like he was back in the academy. Can someone please explain what these 8 inner gates are? Because I've never heard of them, and everyone's acting like it's a big deal, and I'm feeling pretty left out here. Guy nodded solemnly. A fair question, and one that deserves a thorough answer. He took a deep breath, centering himself. The 8 inner gates are specific points in the body's chakra pathway system that limit the flow of chakra. Think of them as safety valves. They exist to prevent us from overloading our bodies with more power than we can handle. Okay, Naruto said slowly. So they're like limits? Precisely. But the technique I have mastered, the technique I intend to teach you, allows the shinobi to force open these gates, removing the limitations and unleashing power far beyond what would normally be possible. Guy's expression was grave. Each gate grants tremendous strength, speed, and chakra, but at a terrible cost. The body is not meant to handle such forces. Opening even a single gate causes damage to muscles and tendons. Opening multiple gates can shatter bones, rupture blood vessels, destroy organs. And opening all 8? Naruto asked, though something in Guy's tone told him he already knew the answer. Death. Absolute and unavoidable. Guy met Naruto's eyes without flinching. The 8th gate, the gate of death, grants power comparable to the Kage themselves or even more than that, but it burns through the user's life force in minutes. No one who has ever opened the 8th gate has survived. The training ground was utterly silent. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out, its cry echoing through the trees. But I could survive it, Naruto said slowly. Because of my healing. Potentially. We won't know for certain until we begin training. Guy's voice softened slightly. This is not a decision to be made lightly, Naruto. The path I'm offering you is one of pain and hardship. Even with your healing factor, training the gates will push you to the very limits of human endurance. You will suffer. You will struggle. You will want to give up. Naruto's jaw tightened. I've been suffering my whole life. I've been struggling since the day I was born. He looked up at Guy, and there was fire in his blue eyes, the same fire that had driven him to master the shadow clone technique in a single night, the same fire that had kept him going through years of loneliness and hatred. But I've never given up. Not once. And I'm not about to start now. Guy stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, his face split into that enormous, blinding smile. That is the spirit! He grabbed Naruto's hand and pumped it vigorously. I knew the Hokage was right about you. Your flames of youth burn brighter than the sun itself. Thanks? Naruto managed, trying to extract his hand from Guy's iron grip. So, does this mean? It means your training begins immediately. Guy released him and spun to face Lee and Tenten. As for you two, Naruto's presence on this team changes nothing about your own development. Lee, you will continue your conditioning regimen. Tenten, you will continue your weapons training. But from now on, we will also incorporate group exercises designed to build teamwork and trust. Guy-sensei. Lee's hand shot up like a rocket. Permission to train alongside Naruto. If he is to learn the gates, then I wish to support him as his eternal rival. Naruto blinked. Eternal what? Rival. Lee bounded over to stand directly in front of Naruto, his eyes blazing with determination. I too walk the path of taijutsu. I too have been told that I cannot achieve greatness. But I have proven them wrong, and I will continue to prove them wrong. He extended his hand. Let us push each other to new heights, Naruto. Let us become the strongest taijutsu users the world has ever seen. There was something almost overwhelming about Lee's enthusiasm, a relentless, unstoppable force that demanded acknowledgement. Naruto found himself grinning despite himself. You know what? Sure. He clasped Lee's hand firmly. But just so we're clear, I'm gonna be the one who becomes Hokage. Not you. Then I shall simply have to become the greatest taijutsu master instead. Lee's grip tightened. It is a promise between men. Between what? Tenten sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Great. Now there's two of them. Guy, meanwhile, was weeping openly, tears streaming down his face in what appeared to be rivers of pure joy. Such beautiful youth. Such magnificent rivalry. Lee, Naruto, your passion moves me to my very soul. Is he crying? Naruto asked, slightly alarmed. He does that, Tenten said dryly. You get used to it. Eventually. Lee! Naruto! Guy swept both boys into a crushing embrace, lifting them off their feet entirely. From this day forward, you are brothers in arms. You will train together, fight together, and grow stronger together. And Tenten, you will be the wise and beautiful sister who keeps them grounded. I didn't sign up for that role, Tenten protested, but there was a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Now then! Guy released the boys and struck another pose, this one involving a thumbs up and what appeared to be a sparkling grin. Let us begin the first day of your new life, Naruto Uzumaki. 1,000 push-ups, followed by 1,000 sit-ups, followed by 10 kilometers of running. And if you cannot complete these tasks before sunset, you will do them again tomorrow. Naruto's jaw dropped. 1,000? Each? Are you insane? Possibly. Guy's smile never wavered. But as my eternal rival Kakashi often says, those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. And I say, those who give up on their training before completing it are the worst trash of all. That's not even the same thing. Less talking, more push UPS. Lee, show your new rival how it is done. Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee dropped to the ground and began pumping out push-ups at a speed that defied logic. 1, 2, 3, 4. Naruto stared at the green-clad blur for approximately 3 seconds. Then, with a growl of determination, he dropped down beside Lee and began his own set. 1, 2, 3. Behind them, Tenten watched with something approaching sympathy. He's not going to make it to 100, she said quietly to Guy. Perhaps not today, Guy replied, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. But he will try. And tomorrow, he will try again. And the day after that. That is what it means to walk the path of youth. He turned his gaze to Naruto's struggling form, watching as the boy pushed through obvious exhaustion with sheer stubborn willpower. That is what it means to never give up. 52, 53, 54. That's the spirit, Naruto. Your flames of youth burn brilliantly. Underscore 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 underscore. Chapter 2: The First Gate. 3 weeks into his training with Team Guy, Naruto was fairly certain he had died and gone to some kind of exercise-themed hell. Every muscle in his body ached. Every joint protested at the slightest movement. Every fiber of his being screamed for rest, for relief, for even a single moment of peace. But Guy was relentless, Lee was inexhaustible, and Naruto refused, absolutely refused, to be the weak link on this team. So he pushed on. 498, 499, 500. Naruto collapsed onto his back, gasping for air. Above him, the morning sky was a brilliant blue, dotted with wispy clouds that seemed to mock his suffering. Excellent work, Naruto! Guy appeared in his field of vision, that eternal smile plastered across his face. Your push-up count has increased by 200 since you began. Truly, your progress is most youthful. Thanks, sensei. Naruto wheezed. I think I'm dying. Nonsense! Your healing factor is already restoring your muscle tissue to peak condition. In fact, Guy's eyes sparkled with what Naruto had come to recognize as dangerous enthusiasm. I believe you are ready for the next phase of your training. Naruto forced himself into a sitting position, wincing at the protest from his abdominal muscles. Next phase? What happened to building a foundation? You have built an excellent foundation over these past weeks. Your strength has doubled, your speed has increased significantly, and your endurance now rivals Lee's when he first began training with me. Guy extended a hand and hauled Naruto to his feet. It is time to begin learning the technique that brought you to this team in the first place. Naruto's fatigue suddenly seemed less important. The 8 inner gates? The 8 inner gates. Guy's expression grew serious, that rare shift that always preceded his most important lessons. Come! There is something I must show you. He led Naruto away from the training ground, deeper into the forest that surrounded Konoha's outer districts. They walked in silence for nearly 15 minutes, following a path that grew increasingly narrow and overgrown until it was barely visible at all. Finally, they emerged into a clearing that took Naruto's breath away. It was a crater. A massive, perfect circle of devastation carved into the earth, easily 50 meters across. The trees at its edges were bent outward, as if fleeing from whatever cataclysm had occurred here. The ground was scorched and blackened, and even now, years after whatever event had created this place, nothing grew within its boundaries. What happened here? Naruto asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I did. Guy walked to the edge of the crater and stood there, his back to Naruto, his gaze fixed on the devastation before him. 6 years ago, during the Nine-Tails attack on the village, I opened 6 of the 8 inner gates for the first time. Naruto's eyes went wide. He remembered nothing of the attack, of course. He'd been a newborn at the time, the seal on his belly still fresh. But he'd heard the stories, seen the memorial stones, felt the weight of the village's hatred that stemmed from that terrible night. You fought the Nine-Tails? I did what I could. Guy's voice was distant, lost in memory. It was not enough. Nothing was enough against that monster, nothing except the 4th Hokage's sacrifice. He turned to face Naruto, and there was something ancient in his eyes. But I learned something that night. Something important. What? The true cost of power. Guy spread his arms, encompassing the crater, the destruction, the scar on the earth that would never fully heal. This is what happened when I released the 6th gate. My body could not contain the energy I had unleashed. I very nearly died. He let his arms fall. And yet, it was barely enough to slow the Nine-Tails for a few seconds. Naruto stared at the crater, trying to imagine the kind of power that could create such devastation. It was difficult. Even with everything he'd learned about chakra and jutsu, this seemed beyond anything he had ever conceived. Why are you showing me this? Guy walked back toward him, his footsteps silent on the scorched earth. Because I need you to understand what you are asking to learn. The 8 inner gates are not a technique to be used lightly. They are a last resort, a final option when all other paths have failed. Even with your healing factor, opening the gates will hurt you in ways you cannot imagine. But I'll survive. Yes. Probably. Guy stopped in front of Naruto, close enough that the boy had to tilt his head back to meet his eyes. But survival is not the same as victory, Naruto. Pain is not just a physical sensation, it is a test of will. When you open a gate, you will feel your muscles tearing, your bones cracking, your blood vessels bursting. You will feel yourself dying, over and over again, even as your body struggles to repair the damage. Naruto's mouth went dry, but he forced himself to hold Guy's gaze. And you still want to teach me? I want to give you a choice. Guy's voice was gentle now, without its usual bombast. You can walk away from this path. You can train in conventional taijutsu, become an excellent fighter without ever touching the gates. There is no shame in that. But if you choose to learn the gates, you must understand that there is no going back. Once you open that first gate, you will be committed to a path of pain that most shinobi cannot even comprehend. Guy placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. So I ask you, Naruto Uzumaki, knowing the cost, knowing the suffering that awaits you, do you still wish to learn? The question hung in the air between them. Naruto looked at the crater, at the testament to power that had nearly killed one of Konoha's strongest shinobi. He thought about his dreams, his ambitions, his desperate need to prove himself to a village that had never believed in him. And he thought about the Nine-Tails, locked away inside him. The monster that had caused so much destruction, so much death. The demon that had made him an outcast from the day he was born. If Guy could barely scratch that beast with 6 gates open. Teach me, Naruto said, and his voice did not waver. I want to become strong enough to protect everyone. Strong enough that no one ever has to sacrifice themselves for me again. He clenched his fists, feeling the power in his body, the potential that had always been there but never properly channeled. Strong enough to be Hokage. Guy studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, that brilliant smile spread across his face. Then let us begin. They returned to the main training ground, where Lee and Tenten were in the middle of their own practice session. Lee was executing a series of rapid kicks against the training dummy, each strike landing with enough force to send shockwaves through the wooden post. Tenten was practicing her summoning technique, pulling weapon after weapon from scrolls and hurling them at targets with deadly precision. Lee! Tenten! Guy's voice boomed across the clearing. Come! Today marks a momentous occasion. Both students stopped their training immediately, curiosity evident on their faces. They jogged over to where Guy and Naruto stood, Lee practically bouncing with anticipation. What is it, Guy-sensei? Lee asked. Has something happened? Indeed it has. Guy struck a pose, one finger pointing dramatically at the sky. Today, I will teach Naruto to open the first gate. Lee's eyes went wide with excitement. Already? Guy-sensei, that is wonderful. Naruto, I am so proud of you. Thanks, bushy brow. Naruto said, grinning despite his nervousness. The nickname had started as an insult during their first week of training, but Lee had embraced it with such enthusiasm that it had somehow become a term of endearment. Tenten, however, looked less thrilled. Is that really a good idea, Guy-sensei? We don't know how his healing factor will interact with the gates. That is precisely why we are testing it now, under controlled conditions. Guy's expression grew serious. If something goes wrong, I will be here to intervene. But I believe in Naruto's potential, and I believe this is the next step in his development. It's fine, Tenten, Naruto said, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. I've been through worse. Tenten's expression softened slightly. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to have to explain to the Hokage why our newest teammate exploded. I'm not going to explode. Probably, she amended, with just a hint of a smile. Guy clapped his hands together, drawing everyone's attention. Now then, let us begin with the theory. He turned to Naruto, his voice taking on a lecturing tone. The first gate is called the Gate of Opening. It is located in the brain and when released, removes the body's natural restraints on muscle use. Restraints? Naruto frowned. What kind of restraints? Normally, your brain limits how much power your muscles can exert. This is a protective measure, designed to prevent you from damaging yourself through overexertion. When you open the Gate of Opening, you remove this limitation, allowing you to use 100% of your strength. Guy paused. The downside is that doing so will strain your muscle fibers. Naruto nodded slowly. But my healing factor should repair the damage as it happens. That is our theory. We will now test it. Guy moved to stand directly in front of Naruto. The key to opening the gates is intense concentration and an overwhelming surge of emotion. You must visualize the gate in your mind and force it open through sheer willpower. Visualize it? Naruto's brow furrowed. How am I supposed to visualize something I've never seen? An excellent question. Guy tapped his temple. The gates are not physical objects, they are points in your chakra pathway where energy is restricted. To open them, you must focus on that point and push against the restriction with everything you have. Okay. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to feel what Guy was describing. His chakra pathways, he'd learned about those in the academy, though he'd never been particularly good at sensing them. How do I know where the gate is? For the first gate, focus on your head. Specifically, the point directly behind your forehead. Guy's voice was calm, guiding. Can you sense it? A tightness, a restriction, like a door that refuses to open? Naruto concentrated harder. At first, he felt nothing unusual, just the normal sensations of his own body, his heartbeat, his breathing. But as he pushed deeper, searching for the sensation Guy had described, he began to notice something. It was subtle at first. A pressure located exactly where Guy had indicated. As he focused on it, the pressure grew more distinct, more definable. It felt like a wall. Something solid, blocking the flow of energy. I think I feel it, Naruto said, not opening his eyes. Good. Now push against it. Push how? With your will. With your determination. With everything that drives you to become strong. Guy's voice intensified. Think about your dreams, Naruto. Think about becoming Hokage. Think about all the people who told you that you couldn't do it, that you weren't good enough, that you would never amount to anything. Let that fuel you. Let it burn inside you until the fire is too great to be contained. The memories came unbidden, years of loneliness, of isolation, of desperate attempts to be acknowledged that were met with nothing but contempt. The cold stares of villagers. The whispered insults they thought he couldn't hear. The birthday parties he was never invited to, the games he was never allowed to play, the doors that were always closed in his face. And beneath all of that, deeper than the hurt, stronger than the despair, was something else. Determination. Pure, unyielding, unstoppable determination. He would prove them all wrong. He would become Hokage. He would make them see him, acknowledge him, respect him. No matter what it took. Open! Naruto screamed, and pushed against the wall with every ounce of will he possessed. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It felt like something inside him shattered, not painfully, but liberatingly, like breaking free from chains he hadn't known he was wearing. Energy flooded through him, raw and powerful, and his body surged with strength that seemed to come from somewhere beyond himself. His eyes snapped open, and he saw the world with new clarity. Colors were brighter. Sounds were sharper. Every sensation was magnified 100-fold. And then the pain hit. It started in his arms. His muscles exceeded their normal limits and began to strain themselves. It spread to his legs, his back, his chest, until every inch of his body was screaming in protest. He dropped to his knees, gasping, his vision blurring at the edges, feeling exhausted. But even as the pain reached its peak, he felt something else. A warmth, spreading through his body, following the damage and erasing it. His healing factor, kicking into overdrive, repairing his muscles almost as quickly as it gets strained. The pain didn't stop. His muscles continued to tear as the gate's power flowed through them, but the damage didn't accumulate. It was like running on a treadmill of agony, constantly hurting but never getting worse. Naruto! Lee's voice, distant and concerned. Are you all right? Naruto gritted his teeth against the pain, forcing himself back to his feet. I'm fine. It hurts a bit, but I'm fine. Guy was watching him with an intensity that bordered on reverence. You did it, he said softly. You actually did it. Did what? Naruto looked down at himself, half expecting to see his arms hanging in bloody tatters. Instead, they looked normal. Maybe a little redder than usual, but completely intact. You opened the first gate and maintained it for nearly 30 seconds. Guy's voice was thick with emotion. Most shinobi can only hold it for a few seconds before they become too exhausted. But don't worry, it will be easier the more times you use it. And your healing factor is keeping pace with the muscle strain. 30 seconds? It had felt like an eternity. Can I close it? Naruto asked. The pain was still there, constant and unrelenting, and he was beginning to feel the strain of fighting against it. Yes. Simply release your concentration. Let the gate close naturally. Naruto exhaled, letting go of the mental focus that was keeping the gate open. Immediately, the flood of power ceased, and the pain began to fade as his healing factor finished repairing the last of the damage. He stood there for a moment, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. That was... He shook his head, unable to find the words. That was insane. That was the first gate, Guy said, and now his smile was back in full force. And you survived it. Not only survived, you thrived. He grabbed Naruto's shoulders, his grip strong enough to be uncomfortable. Do you understand what this means, Naruto? You can use the gates without destroying yourself. You can train with them, master them, push them to their absolute limits. I can become stronger, Naruto said slowly, the implications beginning to dawn on him. Stronger than anyone. Perhaps. Guy released him and stepped back. But do not let this success make you overconfident. The first gate is only the beginning. Each subsequent gate is more powerful, and more dangerous, than the last. The pain you felt today will be nothing compared to what awaits you as you progress. I know. Naruto's jaw set with determination. But I'm not going to stop. Not now, not ever. Lee appeared at his side, his eyes shining with something that looked like brotherhood. I will train alongside you, Naruto. Together, we will master the gates and become the strongest taijutsu users in history. You're on, bushy brow. Naruto extended his fist, and Lee met it with his own. Let's do this. Behind them, Tenten rolled her eyes. Great. Now they're going to be even more insufferable. But she was smiling as she said it. Underscore 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 underscore. Chapter 3: Growing Pains. The weeks that followed were a blur of training, pain, and progress. Naruto, he said, and his voice was surprisingly gentle. I do not know what burden you carry, but I can see that it weighs heavily on you. And I want you to know that whatever it is, it does not change how I see you. Naruto's head snapped up. How can you say that? You don't even know. I know that you are my friend, Lee interrupted. I know that you train harder than anyone I have ever met. I know that you have a dream, and that you refuse to give up on it no matter what obstacles stand in your way. He smiled, that brilliant, genuine smile that was so much like Guy's. Those are the things that matter to me. Not some secret you are afraid to share. For a long moment, Naruto couldn't speak. There was a lump in his throat, and his eyes were burning with tears he refused to let fall. Thanks, bushy brow. He finally managed. That means a lot. You are welcome. Lee sprang to his feet, striking a pose that was unmistakably influenced by Guy. Now then! We still have 500 squats to complete before dinner. Let us continue. 500? I thought it was 400. I added an extra 100 as a self-imposed challenge. To make up for our conversation break. Naruto groaned, but he was smiling as he stood up. You're insane, you know that? Perhaps. But as Guy-sensei says, it is better to be insane and strong than sane and weak. I'm pretty sure he's never said that. He might. Eventually. And so it went day after day, week after week. Naruto grew stronger, faster, and more skilled. The first gate became second nature, and Guy began teaching him the preparations for the second gate, the Gate of Healing, which ironically could potentially boost Naruto's already impressive regenerative capabilities even further. But it wasn't all training in progress. There were setbacks too. The first major incident occurred about 6 weeks into Naruto's time with Team Guy. They were on a mission, nothing serious, just a standard C-rank escort assignment that Guy had deemed appropriate for his team's current level. A merchant needed protection while traveling between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rivers, and Team Guy had been assigned to ensure his safety. It should have been simple. It wasn't. The bandits appeared out of nowhere, emerging from the trees like shadows given form. There were at least a dozen of them, far more than the mission briefing had suggested, and they were better armed than simple highwaymen had any right to be. Protect the client! Guy shouted, his body already flowing into combat stance. I will handle the majority. Lee, Naruto, Tenten, take care of any who get past me. What followed was chaos. Naruto had been in fights before, schoolyard scuffles, academy sparring matches, even his confrontation with Mizuki that had earned him his headband. But this was different. This was real combat, with real stakes, and the bandits weren't pulling their punches. The first one came at him with a katana, moving faster than Naruto had expected. He dodged, barely, the blade whistling past his ear close enough to trim a few hairs. His training kicked in, and he countered with a palm strike to the man's chest that sent him flying backward. 1 down. 3 more rushing toward him. He opened the first gate. The power surged through him, and suddenly everything seemed to slow down. The bandits, who had seemed fast before, now moved like they were wading through water. Naruto wove between them, his fists striking with precision and force that his academy self could never have managed. But there were too many. For every bandit he dropped, 2 more seemed to take their place. And while Naruto was handling his share, he could see Tenten struggling nearby, her weapons being deflected by a massive brute with a tower shield. Lee was doing better, his taijutsu keeping several opponents at bay, but even he was starting to show signs of fatigue. Naruto! Tenten's voice, sharp with alarm. Behind you! He turned, but too late. The blade caught him across the back, slicing through his jacket and into the flesh beneath. Pain exploded through him. Different from the controlled agony of the gates, this was chaotic, external, wrong. Blood splattered the ground. Naruto stumbled forward, the first gate flickering as his concentration wavered. The bandit who had struck him grinned, raising his sword for a finishing blow. And then something changed. The wound on Naruto's back began to close. Rapidly, the flesh knitting itself together in a way that was clearly inhuman. The bandit's grin faltered, replaced by confusion then fear. Naruto turned to face him, and there was something cold in his blue eyes now. Something dangerous. That hurt, he said quietly. The bandit screamed as Naruto's fist connected with his face. After that, things became a blur. Naruto tore through the remaining bandits like a hurricane, his healing factor nullifying every wound they managed to inflict, his enhanced strength overwhelming their defenses. By the time Guy had finished dealing with the main group and turned to check on his students, the fight was over. Naruto stood in the center of a ring of unconscious bodies, breathing hard, his clothes torn and bloody but his body completely unmarked. Naruto, Guy said, his voice carefully neutral. Are you all right? I'm fine. Naruto's voice was flat, distant. They're not dead. I made sure not to kill them. That is good. Very good. Guy approached slowly, as one might approach a wild animal. The way you fought just now, that was not something you had shown in training. I was angry. Naruto looked down at his hands stained with blood that wasn't his own. They hurt me. They tried to kill Tenten. I just reacted. Lee and Tenten were watching from a distance, their expressions a mixture of awe and concern. The merchant they had been protecting was cowering behind a tree, clearly more afraid of Naruto than he had been of the bandits. Your healing factor, Guy said slowly. It works on more than just training injuries. Yeah. Naruto's voice was still flat. I've known for a while. The villagers, some of them tried to hurt me when I was younger. I always healed before anyone could prove it. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken implications. Guy's expression flickered through several emotions, anger, sadness, determination, before settling on something that looked like resolve. You should have told me, he said finally. Would it have changed anything? It would have changed how I approached your training. How I understood your capabilities. Guy placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. You are stronger than I realized, Naruto. Not just physically, but mentally as well. To have endured what you have endured, and still maintain the spirit you have shown, that is remarkable. Naruto didn't respond. He was still staring at his blood-stained hands. Come, Guy said gently. We should complete the mission and return to the village. There will be time to discuss this later. The rest of the escort mission passed without incident. The merchant, once he recovered from his shock, was effusively grateful for his rescue. But his gratitude seemed directed more at Guy and the others than at Naruto, and he kept his distance from the blonde genin whenever possible. Naruto barely noticed. He was lost in thought, replaying the battle in his mind, analyzing his actions and their consequences. He had always known his healing factor was abnormal. But until today, he had never truly understood what it meant for him in combat. He could take hits that would kill normal shinobi. He could fight through injuries that would incapacitate his peers. He was, in a very real sense, almost unkillable by conventional means. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. Back in Konoha, Guy insisted on a full debriefing before allowing his team to disperse for the evening. They gathered in the small classroom that had been assigned for their use, sitting around a central table as Guy went over the details of the mission. First, the positives, Guy began. All team members performed admirably under pressure. Lee, your taijutsu was excellent. You held off multiple opponents without sustaining serious injury. Tenten, your weapon's accuracy remains unmatched, and your quick thinking alerted Naruto to the threat behind him. Both students nodded, accepting the praise with varying degrees of comfort. Naruto. Guy's gaze fixed on the blonde. Your combat performance exceeded my expectations. You demonstrated remarkable control of the first gate under actual combat conditions, and your ability to continue fighting despite injury was impressive. But? Naruto asked, sensing there was more. But you lost control toward the end. Guy's voice was gentle but firm. When you began attacking the bandits after your wound healed, your strikes were more powerful than necessary. Several of those men sustained serious injuries that could have been avoided with more precision. Naruto's jaw tightened. They were trying to kill us. Yes, they were. And we were justified in defending ourselves. But there is a difference between defense and vengeance, Naruto. A shinobi must always be in control of their emotions, especially in combat. Guy leaned forward. What were you feeling in that moment? When you turned to face the bandit who had cut you? The question hung in the air. Naruto wanted to deflect, to change the subject, to avoid examining that dark moment too closely. But Guy's eyes held no judgment, only concern and a genuine desire to understand. I was angry, Naruto admitted finally. Not just at him, at everyone who's ever hurt me. It all came flooding back, and I just wanted to make him pay. I see. Guy nodded slowly. That anger is understandable, Naruto. Given your experiences, it would be strange if you did not carry some resentment toward those who have wronged you. But anger is a dangerous tool. It can fuel your strength, yes, but it can also cloud your judgment and lead you to make decisions you will later regret. You are saying I should forgive them? There was bitterness in Naruto's voice now. The villagers who beat me? The kids who bullied me? I should just let it go. No. The answer surprised everyone in the room. Forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. No one has the right to tell you how to feel about what you have experienced. Guy stood, moving around the table to stand beside Naruto. What I am saying is that you must learn to channel your anger productively. Use it as fuel for your training, as motivation to become stronger. But do not let it control you in the moment of crisis. Naruto was silent for a long moment, processing Guy's words. Finally, he nodded. I'll try. That is all any of us can do. Guy patted his shoulder. Now then. I believe this calls for a celebratory meal. As our first combat mission as a complete team, we should mark the occasion appropriately. Ichiraku ramen. Naruto's mood lifted immediately at the mention of food. Can we go to Ichiraku? An excellent suggestion. The flames of youth burn brightest on a full stomach. Guy turned to his other students. Lee, Tenten, you will join us, yes? Of course, Guy-sensei. Lee was already on his feet. Tenten sighed, but she was smiling. Someone has to make sure you two don't get into trouble. As the team made their way through Konoha's streets toward the famous ramen stand, Naruto found himself reflecting on everything that had happened. The battle, the revelation, the conversation afterward, it was a lot to process. But one thing stood out above all else. For the first time in his life, he had people who understood him. Who accepted him, flaws and all. Who wanted to help him become better, not because they had to, but because they genuinely cared. It was a strange feeling. Warm and uncomfortable at the same time, like wearing a new piece of clothing that didn't quite fit yet. But he was beginning to think he could get used to it. Underscore 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 underscore. Chapter 4: The Second Gate. The training ground was silent except for the sound of controlled breathing. Naruto stood in the center of the clearing, his eyes closed, his body perfectly still. Beside him, Guy watched with an intensity that betrayed the significance of the moment. Lee and Tenten observed from a safe distance, their own training temporarily suspended. It had been 3 months since Naruto had joined Team Guy. 3 months of brutal conditioning, constant pushing, and gradual mastery. And now, finally, Guy had declared him ready for the next step. The second gate. The gate of healing. Remember, Guy said quietly. The second gate is located in the brain, like the first. But instead of removing physical limiters, it forces your brain to operate at maximum capacity. This will dramatically increase your strength and stamina, but it will also increase the strain on your body. Deeper muscle fiber damage than the gate of opening. I understand. Naruto's voice was calm, centered. The key is the same as before. Focus on the gate, visualize it, and push through with absolute determination. Guy stepped back, giving Naruto space. When you are ready. Naruto took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. He had practiced this visualization dozens of times over the past weeks, familiarizing himself with the location of the second gate until he could find it in his sleep. The actual opening would be different, he knew, more intense, more painful, more dangerous. But he was ready. He opened the first gate first, letting the familiar power surge through him. The pain was minimal now, his body so accustomed to the process that his healing factor barely noticed the damage. It was like warming up before a workout. Then he reached deeper. The second gate felt different from the first. Where the first gate had been like a wall, solid and unyielding, the second gate felt more like a locked door. There was something behind it, something powerful, and it wanted to be released. All he had to do was find the key. He pushed harder, channeling his willpower into a single focus point. The door resisted, rattled, began to give way. And then it burst open. The sensation was overwhelming. If the first gate was like removing chains, the second gate was like being struck by lightning. Power flooded through every nerve, every synapse, every fiber of his being. His mind accelerated, processing information at speeds that felt inhuman. His body responded in kind, muscles swelling with energy that threatened to tear them apart. The pain was exquisite. His healing factor roared into action, working at double, triple, quadruple its normal rate to keep pace with the destruction. He could feel himself dying and being reborn in the same instant, over and over, a cycle of destruction and creation that defied natural law. Naruto! Guy's voice, distant but urgent. Can you hear me? Report your status. I'm okay. The words came out strained but coherent. It hurts. But I'm okay. He opened his eyes, and the world seemed to have slowed to a crawl. He could see individual leaves falling from the trees, could track their spinning descent with perfect clarity. He could hear Lee's heartbeat from 20 meters away, rapid with excitement and concern. And he could feel the power. How long can you maintain it? Guy asked, his voice carefully controlled. I don't know. Naruto took a step forward, marveling at how easy it was. His body felt lighter than air, stronger than steel. A few minutes, maybe hours? The pain isn't getting worse. My healing factor is working overtime. Naruto could feel it, could sense the constant regeneration that was keeping pace with the destruction. It's like running really fast on a treadmill. I'm moving, but I'm not actually going anywhere. A useful analogy. Guy considered for a moment, then nodded decisively. Let us test your capabilities. Lee! Yes, Guy-sensei! Lee bounded forward, his own excitement barely contained. Spar with Naruto. But be cautious. With the second gate active, his strength and speed will be significantly enhanced. Lee's grin was fierce. I understand. The two boys faced each other, separated by perhaps 10 meters. Lee dropped into his fighting stance, weight balanced, hands raised. Naruto did the same, his heightened senses cataloging every detail of his opponent's position. Begin! Lee moved first, launching himself forward with the speed that had made him famous among the genin. Under normal circumstances, Naruto would have struggled to track his movement. Now, with two gates open, Lee seemed almost to be moving in slow motion. Naruto sidestepped the opening punch, his body responding to his thoughts with barely a delay. His counter-strike caught Lee in the ribs, not hard enough to injure but enough to send the other boy skidding backward. Lee's eyes widened. Your speed! Yeah. Naruto felt a grin spreading across his face. This is different. What followed was unlike any of their previous spars. Naruto moved with a fluidity he had never before achieved, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to anticipate and counter Lee's attacks with almost casual ease. Lee pushed harder, faster, more creative, but the gap in their capabilities had become a gulf. Finally, after perhaps 3 minutes of one-sided combat, Guy called a halt. Enough! Naruto, close the gates. It was harder than Naruto expected. His body wanted to hold on to the power, to keep that incredible sensation of limitless capability. But he forced himself to let go, releasing his mental grip on both gates. The power drained away, and suddenly his body felt heavy and slow, like he was wearing weights he had forgotten existed. He dropped to one knee, gasping. The accumulated exhaustion hit him all at once, his healing factor having been too focused on immediate repairs to prevent the overall fatigue. Incredible. Guy's voice was hushed, almost reverent. 3 minutes with the second gate active, and your body shows no lasting damage. Naruto, do you understand what you have just accomplished? I won? Naruto managed between breaths. You demonstrated the viability of sustained gate usage. Guy knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. What took most shinobi a lifetime to achieve, if they survived long enough to achieve it, you have done in months. Your potential is truly limitless. Lee appeared on Naruto's other side, his expression mixing disappointment at his loss with genuine happiness for his friend. That was amazing, Naruto. Your speed was at least twice what it usually is. It felt like more than that. Naruto slowly got to his feet, accepting Lee's offered hand for support. Everything was so slow. So clear. I could see exactly what you were going to do before you did it. The second gate enhances neuroprocessing as well as physical capabilities, Guy explained. Your brain was operating at maximum efficiency, allowing you to analyze and respond to stimuli faster than normal. So basically, I became smarter? In a manner of speaking. Guy smiled. Though I would not recommend using it to study for exams. The energy expenditure is significant. Despite his exhaustion, Naruto laughed. Got it. Gates are for fighting, not homework. Precisely. Guy struck a pose, his good humor restored. Now then. This calls for celebration. 500 victory laps around the training ground. 500? Naruto's voice cracked. Sensei, I can barely stand. Then we will do them together. Lee, join us. There is nothing like shared suffering to strengthen the bonds of youth. Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee was already jogging in place. Come, Naruto. I will not let you fall behind. Naruto groaned, but he forced himself into motion. His body protested every step, but his healing factor was already working to restore his energy. By the time they completed the first lap, he felt almost normal again. By the time they finished all 500, he felt stronger than ever. The following weeks brought rapid progress. With the second gate now accessible, Naruto's combat capabilities had taken a massive leap forward. Guy began incorporating gate usage into their regular training routines, helping Naruto refine his control and efficiency. They also began exploring the theoretical limits of Naruto's healing factor. Guy designed experiments, carefully controlled, always supervised, to determine exactly how much damage Naruto's body could sustain and still recover from. The results were startling. Minor wounds, cuts, bruises, sprains, healed in seconds. More serious injuries, broken bones, deep lacerations, took minutes rather than the days or weeks they would require for a normal person. And even catastrophic damage, the kind that would kill an ordinary shinobi, merely incapacitated Naruto temporarily before his body rebuilt itself. There are limits, Guy cautioned after one particularly intense session that had left Naruto unconscious for nearly an hour while his body regenerated from multiple compound fractures. We do not know what they are, but they exist. Do not assume you are invincible. I know, Naruto replied. But it's good to know what I can survive. Indeed. Knowledge is power, And self-knowledge is the greatest power of all. Guy paused, considering his next words carefully. There is something else we should discuss. Your chakra. Naruto frowned. What about it? Your reserves are substantial. Larger than any genin I have ever encountered, possibly larger than most jonin. Guy's expression was thoughtful. Yet your control is poor, which is why ninjutsu has always been difficult for you. Yeah, I know. The academy instructor said I had too much chakra to control properly. That may have been true once. But you are no longer the same person you were at the academy. Guy leaned forward. The discipline you have developed through taijutsu training should translate to improved chakra control. Have you attempted any ninjutsu since joining our team? The question caught Naruto off guard. He had been so focused on taijutsu, on the gates, on physical development, that he had barely thought about ninjutsu at all. But now that Guy mentioned it. No, he admitted. I haven't tried anything since I learned the shadow clone technique. Then perhaps it is time. Guy stood and moved to the center of the training ground. I am no ninjutsu specialist, but I can assess your current capabilities. Perform the clone technique, the basic version, not the shadow variant. Naruto grimaced. The clone technique had been his worst skill at the academy, so poor that it had nearly prevented him from graduating. But he formed the hand seals anyway, channeling chakra as he had been taught. Clone Jutsu! There was a puff of smoke, and then, a clone appeared beside him. A perfect clone, identical in every way, floating slightly above the ground as the technique required. Naruto stared at it in shock. I did it! He looked at his hands, then at the clone, then back at his hands. But I could never do this before. Your chakra control has improved dramatically, Guy observed, nodding with satisfaction. The physical discipline we have instilled has carried over to your chakra manipulation, whether you realized it or not. But I haven't practiced chakra control at all. You have been practicing it constantly, every time you open the gates. Guy smiled knowingly. What do you think the gates are, if not points in your chakra pathway? By learning to manipulate those points, you have been unconsciously training your chakra control this entire time. Naruto's mind raced with the implications. If his control had improved this much without even trying, then with focused practice. I could learn real ninjutsu. He breathed. Not just the shadow clone, actual techniques. Potentially. Though I would recommend continuing to focus on taijutsu as your primary discipline. The gates remain your greatest advantage, and spreading your training too thin could slow your progress. Guy's expression grew thoughtful. However, there's one technique I believe would complement your abilities perfectly. What is it? The body flicker technique. A supplementary skill that allows instantaneous short-range movement. Combined with your speed from the gates, it would make you nearly untouchable in combat. Guy paused. I can teach you the basics, but true mastery would require practice beyond what our regular training allows. Naruto's eyes lit up. The body flicker was a technique he had seen higher-level shinobi use countless times, always ending their ability to vanish and reappear at will. The thought of being able to do that himself. Teach me, he said immediately. Whatever it takes. Guy's smile was blinding. That is the spirit. Let us begin. The body flicker technique, Naruto quickly learned, was deceptively simple in concept but maddeningly difficult in execution. The basic principle was straightforward: channel chakra to temporarily vitalize the body, allowing movement at speeds too fast for the eye to follow. There were only 3 hand seals required, and the chakra cost was relatively low depending on the distance. The difficulty lay in the precision required. Too much chakra, and you would overshoot your target or lose control entirely. Too little, and the technique would fail. The margin for error was razor thin. The key is visualization, Guy explained as Naruto attempted the technique for the dozenth time. You must see your destination clearly in your mind before activating the jutsu. If your mental image is unclear, your movement will be unclear as well. I get that part. Naruto reformed the hand seals, focusing on a tree approximately 20 meters away. But every time I try, I end up somewhere completely different. That is because your chakra control, while improved, is still imprecise. Guy watched critically as Naruto executed the technique, and ended up 5 meters to the left of his intended destination. You are flooding the technique with excess chakra, which is disrupting your trajectory. So I need to use less chakra? You need to use exactly the right amount of chakra, no more and no less. Guy demonstrated the technique himself, vanishing from beside Naruto and reappearing exactly where the tree stood. Like this. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration. He had been working on this for hours, and his success rate was still barely above 0. It was like the academy all over again. Everyone else could do things easily that seemed impossible for him. But then he remembered Guy's words about chakra control. about how his gate training had been improving his control without his knowledge. Maybe he was approaching this wrong. "Sensei," he said slowly, "what if I tried using the body flicker while the first gate was open?" Guy blinked, surprised by the suggestion. "That is an interesting idea. The gate would enhance your physical speed, but it might also help stabilize the technique. However, combining techniques in that way is advanced. Let me try." Naruto was already forming the seals for the first gate, feeling the familiar power surge as it opened. "If it doesn't work, my healing factor can handle whatever happens." Before Guy could object further, Naruto formed the body flicker seals and focused on the tree. This time, something different happened. The world blurred around him, and then he was standing exactly where he had intended, beside the tree, hand resting on its bark. He had moved so fast that he hadn't even felt the transition. "I did it!" He spun around, grinning triumphantly at Guy. "It worked!" Guy's expression was thoughtful. "Indeed it did. The gate must be helping to process the chakra more efficiently, compensating for your control issues." He stroked his chin. "This is an unexpected development, but a welcome one. If you can only perform the body flicker with a gate open, that limits its utility somewhat, but combined with your enhanced speed, it could still be a devastating combat tool. Let me try it again." Naruto was already visualizing his next destination, back to his starting position. The seals formed almost automatically now, and another blur later he was standing where he had begun. "Excellent! Your targeting is precise when the gate is active." Guy nodded approvingly. "We will continue to develop this. For now, focus on increasing your range and reducing the time between consecutive flickers." What followed was another intensive training session, with Naruto practicing the body flicker until the technique felt as natural as walking. With the first gate open, he could reliably teleport distances of up to 50 meters, appearing and disappearing with a speed that made even Guy's eyes widen in appreciation. By the end of the day, Naruto was exhausted but exhilarated. He had developed a new capability, one that would make him far more dangerous in combat than he had ever been before. "You have done well today," Guy said as they walked back toward the village. "Your progress continues to exceed my expectations." "Thanks, Sensei." Naruto stretched, working out the kinks in his muscles. "But I still have a long way to go, right? I mean, I've only opened 2 gates. There are still 6 more." "True. And each subsequent gate will be more challenging than the last." Guy's expression grew serious. "The 3rd gate, in particular, will require significant preparation. It is located in the spinal cord rather than the brain, and opening it will release even greater power, along with even greater damage. But I can survive it. With my healing. Probably. But probably is not certainty, Naruto. We will proceed carefully, testing the limits of your capabilities at each stage before moving forward." Guy placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "Your potential is extraordinary, but potential means nothing if you destroy yourself trying to achieve it." Naruto nodded, understanding the warning behind Guy's words. The gates were powerful, yes, but they were also dangerous. Even with his healing factor, there were limits to what his body could endure. He would have to find those limits, and then push past them. Because that was what it meant to be a shinobi. To be a Hokage. To be someone who never, ever gave up. Chapter 5. The team grows closer. Summer had given way to autumn by the time Team Guy received their next significant mission assignment. The months since Naruto's arrival had been transformative for the entire team. Lee's taijutsu had sharpened to a razor edge, honed through countless spars with an opponent who could push him without holding back. Tenten had expanded her arsenal, developing new techniques and refining her already impressive accuracy. And Naruto had mastered the first 2 gates, developed the modified body flicker, and grown from a promising but raw recruit into a genuine threat. More importantly, they had become friends. Real friends, the kind who knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, who could predict each other's movements in battle, who trusted each other with their lives. It was this trust that would be tested on the mission to the Land of Waves. The Land of Waves? Naruto examined the mission scroll with curiosity. That's pretty far away, isn't it? Approximately 3 days' travel under normal conditions, Guy confirmed. The mission is classified as B rank, which represents a step up from our usual assignments. A businessman named Tazuna has requested protection while he completes construction of a bridge. A bridge? Tenten frowned. That doesn't sound like it requires a 4-person team. The situation is more complex than it appears. Guy's expression was unusually serious. The Land of Waves is currently under the control of a shipping magnate named Gato, who has essentially enslaved the population through economic manipulation. Tazuna's bridge would provide an alternative route for trade, breaking Gato's monopoly. So Gato wants to stop the bridge from being built, Lee concluded. Which means he will likely send people to stop Tazuna. Correct. Our intelligence suggests that Gato has employed mercenaries, possibly including missing Nin. That is why a B-rank team was requested rather than a simple escort detail. Guy's gaze swept over all three of his students. This mission will be dangerous. You will be facing opponents who may be stronger, more experienced, and more ruthless than anyone you have encountered before. Are you prepared? Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee's response was immediate and enthusiastic. I've been training for this. Tenten added, her hand resting on the scroll of weapons at her hip. Naruto felt his heart pounding with anticipation. I'm ready. Guy's smile returned, bright as ever. Then let us meet our client and begin our youthful adventure. Underscore 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 underscore. Tazuna was a grizzled old man with gray hair, a perpetual scowl, and breath that smelled strongly of sake. He regarded Team Guy with undisguised skepticism when they met at the village gates. This is it? He gestured at the three genin. A bunch of kids are supposed to protect me from Gato's men? These kids are shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village. Guy replied, his tone patient but firm. They have trained extensively under my guidance and are more than capable of handling this mission. Tazuna looked unconvinced but shrugged. Your funeral, I guess. Let's get moving. I want to reach Wave as soon as possible. The journey began peacefully enough. The roads leading out of the Land of Fire were well maintained and frequently patrolled, presenting little risk of ambush. Team Guy maintained their standard traveling formation, Guy and Tazuna in the center, Lee and Naruto flanking, Tenten bringing up the rear with her long-range capabilities. It was during the second day, after they had crossed into the wilder territory between the major nations, that things began to go wrong. Naruto. Lee's voice was low, barely audible. Did you see that? Naruto had. A puddle, sitting in the middle of the road despite the fact that it hadn't rained in days. His enhanced senses, honed through months of training, picked up the faint scent of metal and the almost imperceptible shimmer of a genjutsu. I see it, he murmured back. Two of them, I think. Hiding in the puddle. A trap. Lee's eyes narrowed. Should we alert Guy-sensei? Before Naruto could respond, Guy's voice cut through the air. Lee! Naruto! Protect the client! The puddle exploded. Two figures emerged, shinobi in ragged clothing, their faces concealed by rebreather masks, connected by a spiked chain that stretched between their gauntlet hands. They moved with coordinated precision, the chain whipping through the air as they flanked Guy from both sides. Die! One of them screamed, and the chain wrapped around Guy's body, spikes biting deep into flesh. For a split second, Naruto's heart stopped. Then Guy burst into smoke. A substitution. The real Guy appeared behind one of the attackers, his foot already descending in a devastating axe kick. The shinobi's head slammed into the ground with bone-cracking force, rendering him unconscious instantly. The second attacker tried to flee, releasing the chain and running toward the tree line. He made it 3 steps before Lee intercepted him, a spinning kick catching him in the midsection and sending him flying. Leave Hurricane! Lee announced, following up with a flurry of strikes that left the second attacker as incapacitated as the first. The entire engagement had lasted less than 10 seconds. Excellent response time, Guy said approvingly, emerging from his concealed position. I was testing your awareness. You both detected the ambush before I signaled. It was too obvious, Naruto said, still riding the adrenaline high. That puddle stuck out like a sore thumb. Indeed. The demon brothers of the mist are not known for their subtlety. Guy knelt beside one of the unconscious attackers, examining his equipment. Chunin level missing Nin from Kirigakure. This confirms our intelligence about Gato employing mercenaries. Tazuna, who had been cowering behind Tenten during the brief battle, looked even more nervous than before. Demon brothers? I've heard of them. They're supposed to be skilled assassins. They were skilled, Guy corrected. But skill means nothing against superior preparation and teamwork. He rose, his expression growing serious. However, their presence suggests that more dangerous opponents may lie ahead. Tazuna-san, is there anything you haven't told us about this mission? The old man's face went pale. For a long moment, he was silent. Then, slowly, he began to speak. Gato's reach is larger than you know. He's not just a shipping magnate. He runs criminal operations throughout the Land of Waves and beyond. Drugs, smuggling, extortion, there's nothing he won't do to maintain his control. Tazuna's voice was heavy with despair. When I started building the bridge, he saw it as a threat. He's already killed several of my workers. And now he's hired ninja to kill me. This should have been included in the mission briefing, Tenten said sharply. We accepted a B-rank mission, not an A-rank. If I had told the truth, your village would never have agreed to help us. We can't afford A-rank prices. Wave is too poor. Tazuna's eyes glistened with unshed tears. But if the bridge isn't completed, my people will continue to suffer under Gato's tyranny. They'll lose all hope. The tension in the air was palpable. By all rights, Team Guy should turn back. The mission parameters had been violated, and continuing would put them at significantly greater risk than they had agreed to. But Naruto thought about what Tazuna had said. About a people suffering under oppression, losing hope, dying slowly under the thumb of a tyrant. And he thought about his own life, about the years of loneliness and hatred, about what it felt like to have no one who cared. We should keep going, he said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Naruto, Guy began. The risks? I know the risks. Naruto met his sensei's eyes squarely. But those people in Wave are suffering right now. They're counting on this bridge, counting on us, even if they don't know it yet. If we abandon them because the mission got harder, what does that say about us as shinobi? As people? Lee stepped forward to stand beside Naruto. I agree. The path of youth is not about avoiding challenges, it is about facing them head-on. Tenten hesitated, then sighed and joined them. Someone has to keep these two from getting killed. I guess that someone is me. Guy looked at his students, at the determination in their eyes, the resolve in their stances. And slowly, his face split into that familiar, brilliant smile. The flames of youth burn bright in all of you. Very well, we will continue the mission. He turned to Tazuna, his expression softening. Take heart, Bridge Builder. Team Guy does not abandon those in need. Tazuna looked like he might cry from relief. Thank you. Thank you all. Save your thanks for when the bridge is complete, Naruto said, grinning. Now let's move, we've got work to do. They reached the coast the following morning and hired a boat to ferry them across the foggy waters to Wave Country. The boatman was nervous, constantly scanning the mist for signs of Gato's patrols, but they made it across without incident. The land of waves itself was a depressing sight. The villages they passed through were run down and impoverished, the people hollow-eyed and fearful. Naruto saw children in ragged clothing begging for scraps, adults shuffling through the streets with defeated postures, businesses boarded up and abandoned. This is worse than I expected, Tenten murmured, her earlier skepticism replaced by genuine sympathy. These people are barely surviving. Gato controls all trade, all commerce, all resources. Tazuna explained bitterly. Anyone who tries to resist is made an example of. We're trapped, helpless, dying by inches. Not for much longer, Naruto said firmly. We're going to finish your bridge, and then you're going to be free. They continued toward Tazuna's village, following a winding path through the dense forest that covered much of the island. The mist grew thicker as they went, reducing visibility to mere meters in every direction. It was Lee who sensed it first. Something's coming, he said suddenly, dropping into a defensive stance. Fast. Naruto opened the first gate on instinct, his enhanced senses reaching out through the fog. He heard it, the whistle of something large cutting through the air, headed directly for them. Down! He screamed, tackling Tazuna to the ground as a massive object spun over their heads. The sword, for that's what it was, a blade nearly as long as Guy was tall, embedded itself in a tree trunk with a thunderous crash. And standing on its handle, having appeared from nowhere, was a man. He was tall and muscular, his lower face wrapped in bandages, his eyes cold and predatory. He wore no headband, but the way he carried himself spoke of years of combat experience. Well, well, the man said, his voice a low growl. Looks like Gato's information was good after all. The bridge builder did hire Leaf Ninja. Zabuza Momochi. Guy's voice was deadly serious, all traces of his usual exuberance gone. The demon of the hidden mist. S-rank missing nin and former member of the 7 ninja swordsmen. So you've heard of me. Zabuza's eyes fixed on Guy with predatory interest. And you'd be my Guy, Konoha's so-called green beast. I've heard you're quite strong. His lips curled beneath the bandages. Let's find out. Lee, Naruto, Tenten, protect Tazuna. Guy's voice cracked like a whip. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. But sensei, Naruto started. No arguments. This opponent is beyond your current level. Guy's expression softened slightly. Trust me. I will handle this. And then he vanished. What followed was one of the most incredible displays of combat Naruto had ever witnessed. Guy and Zabuza clashed in a blur of motion, the Leaf Jonin's fists meeting the missing nin's massive sword in an exchange that generated shockwaves with every impact. The mist swirled around them, disturbed by the force of their movements. Zabuza was fast, incredibly fast for someone wielding such a heavy weapon. His sword techniques were brutal and efficient, each swing capable of cutting a person in half. He had clearly earned his reputation as one of Kiri's elite. But Guy was faster. Without his weights, had he been wearing weights this whole time, Guy moved like the wind itself, flowing around Zabuza's attacks and countering with devastating precision. His kicks cracked like thunder, his punches landed with bone-shattering force. It was clear that he was the superior combatant, gradually wearing down his opponent through sheer martial superiority. How? Zabuza snarled, barely blocking a spinning kick that drove him backward. How is a taijutsu specialist this fast without the gates? Who said I am not using the gates? Guy replied calmly. Naruto's eyes widened. He couldn't sense it, couldn't see any of the telltale signs of gate activation, but if Guy said he was using them. The first gate leaves no visible indicators once you have truly mastered it. Guy continued, launching another devastating combination. It becomes as natural as breathing, as integral as your heartbeat. That is the difference between a novice and a master. Zabuza's expression shifted, the first sign of genuine concern Naruto had seen on his face. You're serious. You're not even trying. I am always trying, Guy corrected. But you are correct that I have not yet shown you my full capabilities. He settled into a new stance, his weight shifting subtly. Shall I demonstrate? Before Zabuza could respond, the mist suddenly thickened, dramatically, supernaturally, until Naruto could barely see his own hand in front of his face. The demon of the mist had lived up to his title. Hidden mist technique. Zabuza's disembodied voice echoed through the fog. Let's see how well your taijutsu works when you can't see your opponent. Naruto felt his heart pounding. The mist blocked not just sight but sound as well, muffling everything into an oppressive silence. He pressed closer to Tazuna, his body tense and ready. 8 vital points. Zabuza's voice continued, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular vein, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. So many choices. Naruto forced himself to focus and calm down, then opened the first gate. His enhanced senses, honed through months of training with Lee, reached out through the fog. He couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything useful. But he could feel the air moving. There. Sensei, on your left! Naruto screamed. The sound of impact echoed through the mist, Guy's fist connecting with something solid. A grunt of pain, and then the fog began to dissipate, revealing Zabuza clutching his ribs where Guy's strike had landed. Good instincts, Naruto, Guy said approvingly, not taking his eyes off his opponent. Your training is paying off. Zabuza glared at Naruto with something approaching respect. The blonde brat. He could sense me through the mist. His eyes narrowed. You're not ordinary genin. None of my students are ordinary, Guy replied. Now then, shall we continue, or have you had enough? For a long moment, Zabuza was silent. Then, slowly, he straightened from his defensive crouch. This isn't over. But I know when to cut my losses. He reached up and pulled his sword from the tree, resting it on his shoulder. We'll meet again, my guy. And next time, I'll be ready. Before anyone could react, a figure dropped from the trees, a masked shinobi in traditional hunter-nin garb, saban needles already flying toward Zabuza's exposed neck. The missing nin didn't even have time to dodge before the needles struck, and he collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. Thank you for weakening him, the masked figure said, their voice androgynous and formal. I have been tracking Zabuza Momochi for weeks. Your assistance in capturing him is greatly appreciated. Guy studied the newcomer with narrowed eyes. Hunter nin from Kirigakure? Correct. I will dispose of the body according to our protocols. The masked shinobi produced a scroll and began the process of sealing Zabuza's corpse. The land of waves is in your debt. And then, in a swirl of leaves, both the hunter nin and Zabuza's body vanished. The clearing was silent. Team Guy stood frozen, processing what had just happened. Tazuna looked like he might faint from relief. Is it over? The old man asked shakily. Guy didn't respond immediately. His expression was thoughtful, troubled in a way that Naruto had rarely seen. We should continue to your village, he said finally. There are questions that need answers. Underscore 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 underscore. They reached Tazuna's home as the sun was setting, the mist finally clearing to reveal a modest but well-maintained house near the shore. A woman, Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, welcomed them with relieved tears, clearly having expected the worst. Father! Thank the heavens you're safe. Thanks to these leaf ninja, Tazuna replied, embracing her. They kept me alive through a lot. The introductions were made, and Team Guy was shown to the rooms where they would be staying. But as the others settled in for the night, Guy pulled his students aside for a private conversation. "Something's wrong," he said without preamble. "The Hunter Nin's behavior was inconsistent." "What do you mean?" Tenten asked. "Hunter Nin dispose of their targets on site. They do not seal the bodies and transport them elsewhere. The risk of the corpse being intercepted is too great." Guy's brow furrowed. "Furthermore, the suban the hunter used are not typically fatal weapons. They are precision tools, designed for targeting pressure points and inducing unconsciousness." Lee's eyes widened. "You think Zabuza is still alive?" "I think it is a strong possibility." Guy's expression was grim. "If the Hunter Nin was actually an accomplice, they may have put Zabuza in a death-like state to allow for his escape and recovery." "So he'll be back," Naruto said, understanding dawning. "Probably with reinforcements." "That is my assessment, yes." Guy looked at each of his students in turn. "Which means we need to be prepared. The next encounter will not be as simple as the first." "What do we do?" Tenten asked. Guy was silent for a moment. Then his smile returned, not the manic grin of his usual enthusiasm, but something fiercer, more determined. "We train. We prepare. And when Zabuza returns, we show him the true power of the Hidden Leaf's youthful flames." Naruto felt a grin spreading across his own face. Despite the danger, despite the uncertainty, he couldn't help feeling excited. This was what he had trained for. This was why he had pushed himself through months of agony and growth. It was time to show the demon of the mist what Team Guy was really capable of. Chapter 6: Training in the Land of Waves. The days that followed established a new rhythm for Team Guy. Mornings were dedicated to protecting Tazuna at the bridge construction site, where the old man and his workers labored to complete the structure that would free their country. The work was hard and dangerous. Gato's influence made it difficult to acquire materials, and the threat of attack kept everyone on edge. Afternoons and evenings were for training. Guy pushed his students harder than ever, knowing that their next encounter with Zabuza, assuming his suspicions were correct, would be far more challenging than the first. The key to surviving against a superior opponent, Guy explained during one particularly grueling session, is not to match their strength, but to exceed their expectations. You must become unpredictable, unconventional, impossible to anticipate. He set them to sparring against each other in rotating combinations, with constantly changing rules and restrictions. Sometimes Naruto had to fight with his eyes closed, relying on his other senses. Sometimes Lee had to defend without attacking. Sometimes Tenten could only use weapons she threw with her non-dominant hand. The exercises were frustrating, exhausting, and incredibly effective. By the end of the first week, all three genin had developed new techniques, new strategies, new ways of adapting to unexpected circumstances. But the most significant development came from Naruto's training with the gates. "You have mastered the first two gates," Guy said one evening, as the sun set over the waves. "Under normal circumstances, I would not recommend attempting the third gate for several more months. But circumstances are not normal." Naruto felt his heart rate accelerate. "You want me to learn the third gate? I want you to be prepared for what's coming." Guy's expression was serious. "Zabuza is a Jonin-level opponent, possibly approaching Kage level in terms of raw combat ability. With only 2 gates, you would not be able to match him even with your healing factor. But with 3, I'd have a chance. You would have options." Guy sat down on a nearby rock, gesturing for Naruto to join him. "The third gate, the Gate of Life, is located in the spinal cord. Unlike the first 2 gates, which primarily affect your brain's limiters and processing speed, the third gate dramatically increases your physical capabilities. Your strength, your speed, your reflexes, all would be enhanced beyond what you have experienced so far." "What's the catch?" Guy smiled grimly. "The catch is that the third gate places enormous strain on your entire body, not just your muscles. Your bones, your organs, your blood vessels, everything is pushed to its limits. The skin typically turns red from the increased blood flow, and the user experiences extreme pain throughout the duration. More pain than the second gate. Considerably more. The second gate is like being burned by a candle. The third gate is like standing in a furnace." Naruto considered this. He had survived the first 2 gates, had pushed through their pain until it became manageable. But Guy's warning was clear: the third gate was in a different category entirely. "What happens if my healing factor can't keep up?" he asked quietly. "You would have a higher chance of bruising and internal strain, reduced long-term endurance if overused." Guy met his eyes without flinching. "And death, potentially. Potentially. There are no guarantees in what we do, Naruto. But I would not suggest this training if I did not believe you could survive it." Guy placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "You have proven yourself capable of enduring extraordinary pain. Your healing factor has exceeded every expectation. And your determination, Your will to never give up is the strongest I have ever encountered in a student. Lee can do it and you can too. Naruto felt warmth spread through his chest at the words. Coming from Guy, a man who had dedicated his entire life to pushing beyond human limits, they carried tremendous weight. When do we start? Guy's smile returned. Tomorrow. Tonight you rest. You will need all your strength for what is to come. The next day dawned gray and overcast, the mist rolling in from the sea like a living thing. Naruto met Guy at their designated training spot, a clearing far enough from Tezuna's house that any disturbance wouldn't alarm the civilians. Lee and Tenten were absent, continuing their own training elsewhere. This was to be a private session, focused entirely on Naruto's development. Are you ready? Guy asked, his voice unusually soft. Naruto nodded. He had spent the previous night meditating, preparing himself mentally for what was to come. The fear was still there. He would be lying if he said otherwise, but it was buried beneath layers of determination. Good. Then let us begin. Guy moved to stand directly in front of Naruto. Open the first gate. Then the second. Familiarize yourself with that state before attempting to go further. Naruto complied, feeling the familiar power surge as the first two gates opened in quick succession. The world sharpened, clarified, came alive with detail that his normal senses could never perceive. Now, Guy continued, focus on your spine. The third gate is located approximately at the level of your shoulder blades, where the spinal cord meets the brain stem. Can you sense it? Naruto reached inward, his enhanced awareness probing for the restriction Guy had described. It took longer than finding the first two gates. The third gate was buried deeper, protected by additional layers of natural defense. But eventually he felt it. It was different from the others. Where the first two gates had felt like walls or locked doors, the third gate felt like a dam, a massive barrier holding back an ocean of power. And behind it, he could sense something immense, something barely contained, straining against its bonds. I feel it. He breathed. It's big. Yes. The first two gates release perhaps 10% of your body's true potential. The third gate releases nearly 30%. Guy's voice was steady, grounding. When you open it, do not fight the power, let it flow through you. Guide it, shape it, but do not try to contain it. Naruto took a deep breath, centering himself. Then he pushed against the dam. It didn't budge. He pushed harder, channeling all his willpower into a single focus point. The dam trembled, cracked, began to give way. And then it broke. The power that flooded through him was nothing like what he had experienced before. It was a tidal wave, a supernova, an explosion of energy that felt like it might tear him apart from the inside. His skin flushed red as blood rushed to the surface, his muscles bulged and strained, his bones groaned under the incredible pressure, and his skin started turning red. And the pain. Guy had been right. This was incomparable to anything he had felt before. Every nerve in his body was screaming, every cell crying out in protest. It was like being burned alive while simultaneously being crushed by a mountain. His healing factor activated at full force, fighting desperately to repair the damage as quickly as it accumulated. For a few terrifying seconds, Naruto wasn't sure which would win, the destruction or the regeneration. Then, slowly, painfully, his body reached a new equilibrium. The pain didn't lessen, but it stabilized, became something he could endure rather than something that threatened to overwhelm him. Naruto! Guy's voice cut through the agony. Status. I'm okay. The words came out through gritted teeth, each syllable an effort. It hurts. A lot. But I'm okay. Can you move? Naruto tried to take a step forward. His legs responded instantly, carrying him forward with a speed that surprised even him. He hadn't intended to move that fast. His body had simply reacted to his intention before his conscious mind could catch up. I'm faster, he realized aloud. Much faster. Try striking that tree. Guy pointed to a massive oak at the edge of the clearing. But control your force, we do not want to destroy the entire forest. Naruto approached the tree, drew back his fist, and punched. The impact cratered the bark, sending splinters flying in every direction. But more than that, he felt the power behind the strike, felt how much more devastating it could have been if he hadn't held back. That was maybe 20% of what I could do, he said, somewhat awed by his own capabilities. Impressive. Guy's eyes were calculating, assessing. How long can you maintain this state? Naruto focused inward, trying to gauge his body's condition. His healing factor was working constantly, repairing the damage from the gate's power, but it wasn't falling behind. If anything, it seemed to be adapting, becoming more efficient as time passed. I don't know. A while, I think. The pain isn't getting worse. Remarkable. Guy shook his head slowly. Truly remarkable. At this rate, you may be able to hold the third gate for extended combat. The praise warmed Naruto more than he would have admitted. Can we spar? I want to see what I can really do. Guy considered for a moment, then nodded. Very well. But I will not hold back as much as I usually do. You need to understand the true gap between your current level and a Jonin's. And with that, he attacked. Even with the third gate open, even with his dramatically enhanced speed and reflexes, Naruto found himself on the defensive almost immediately. Guy's attacks came from angles he hadn't anticipated, with speeds that pushed his enhanced perception to its limits. But he wasn't helpless. He blocked, dodged, counterattacked, and occasionally, his strikes actually connected. Nothing that hurt Guy seriously, but enough to prove that he was making progress. The spar lasted for perhaps 10 minutes before Guy called a halt. By then, Naruto was drenched in sweat and breathing hard, his body pushed to its limits even with his healing factor working overtime. Excellent, Guy declared, his own breathing slightly elevated but far from labored. Your combat instincts have sharpened dramatically, and your control over the third gate is remarkable for a first attempt. I still couldn't beat you, Naruto said, frustration coloring his voice. Of course not. I have spent decades mastering my abilities, while you have been training for mere months. Guy's expression softened. But you are progressing faster than anyone I have ever taught. If you continue at this rate, you will surpass me within a few years. Naruto blinked, not sure he had heard correctly. Surpass you? But you're one of the strongest Jonin in Konoha. And you have the potential to be stronger. Guy placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, a gesture that had become familiar over the months of their training together. The 8 inner gates were always meant to be a sacrificial technique, power achieved at the cost of your own life. But you have changed that equation, Naruto. You can use the gates without the ultimate price. He paused, his eyes growing distant. I have always known that I would likely die using the gates. It is a fate I accepted long ago, in service of protecting what I hold dear. But you could become the first true master of this technique. Someone who can wield its full power without destruction. The weight of that statement settled over Naruto like a mantle. It was a heavy burden, the expectation that he would achieve what no one before him ever had. But it was also an honor, a sign of trust from a man who had given him more guidance and support than anyone else in his life. I won't let you down, Sensei, Naruto said quietly. I promise. Guy's smile was brilliant. I never doubted it for a moment. Now then, close the gate and rest. Tomorrow, we continue. The following days saw Naruto's capabilities with the third gate steadily improving. He learned to open and close it faster, to control the flow of power more precisely, to fight through the pain until it became background noise rather than a distraction. Meanwhile, Lee and Tenten were making their own progress. Lee had refined his taijutsu to an even higher degree, developing new combinations that took advantage of his incredible speed. Tenten had expanded her arsenal with specialized weapons designed for anti-shinobi combat, explosive-tipped kunai, wire-guided shuriken, even a prototype crossbow that could fire multiple bolts in rapid succession. And through it all, the bridge continued to take shape. Tazuna worked tirelessly, his workers gradually regaining their courage as they saw that Gato's forces were being held at bay. The structure grew longer every day, stretching toward the mainland like a promise of hope. But everyone knew that the peace couldn't last forever. It happened on the 10th day. They were at the bridge site as usual when the mist rolled in, too thick, too sudden to be natural. Naruto felt his instincts screaming a warning even before he heard the familiar voice. Did you really think I would give up that easily? Zabuza Momochi emerged from the fog like a specter, his massive sword resting on his shoulder. Beside him stood the masked hunter Nin from before, their identity no longer concealed by pretense. I knew it, Guy murmured. The hunter Nin was your accomplice. Haku is far more than an accomplice. Zabuza's voice held a note of something almost like pride. He is my weapon, the most perfect tool I have ever created. The masked figure, Haku, inclined their heads slightly. It is an honor to meet you again, Leaf Shinobi. I apologize for the deception earlier. Team Guy. Guy's voice rang out across the bridge. Formation Delta. Protect the workers. Lee, Naruto, and Tenten moved instantly, positioning themselves between the enemy and the terrified civilians. Tazuna and his workers began retreating toward the shore, following the evacuation plan they had rehearsed. Zabuza is mine, Guy continued, his voice deadly serious. Lee Tenten, keep the masked one occupied but do not engage recklessly. Naruto. I know. Naruto met his sensei's eyes. I'll be back up. I'll only use the third gate if absolutely necessary. Guy nodded. Good. Now go! The battle erupted. Guy and Zabuza clashed in the center of the bridge, their exchange even more intense than before. Zabuza had clearly been training during his recovery, his movements faster and more precise. But Guy had been training too, and he met every attack with devastating counters. Across the bridge, Lee and Tenten faced Haku. The masked shinobi moved with incredible grace, weaving between Tenten's weapon volleys and deflecting Lee's strikes with almost casual ease. "You are skilled," Haku observed, blocking another of Lee's punches. "But you cannot defeat me. I am sorry for this." Ice began forming in the air around them, crystalline structures that coalesced into a dome of mirrors surrounding the two genin. Tenten immediately recognized the danger. "Lee! Get out of there!" But it was too late. The dome sealed itself, trapping Lee inside with Haku, who had somehow multiplied, or rather, whose image now appeared in every mirror simultaneously. "Demonic mirroring ice crystals," Haku announced, their voice echoing from every direction. "Within this space, I can attack from any angle at any time. No one has ever escaped." Naruto watched in horror as Saban needles began flying from the mirrors, piercing Lee from multiple directions simultaneously. His friend couldn't dodge, couldn't even see where the attacks were coming from. Blood splattered the ice as needle after needle found its mark. "Lee!" Naruto screamed. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He simply moved. The third gate exploded open, and Naruto launched himself at the ice dome with everything he had. His fist connected with one of the mirrors, and shattered it into 1,000 pieces. The impact sent Haku flying, their concentration broken, the remaining mirrors collapsing around them. Lee, bleeding from dozens of shallow wounds but still standing, looked up at his friend in shock. "Naruto, your skin!" "No time!" Naruto's voice was strained, the pain of the third gate competing with his adrenaline. "Get Tenten, help Guy-sensei. I'll handle this one." Haku had already recovered, rising to their feet with an expression of surprise visible even behind the mask. "You broke through my mirrors. No one has ever done that. I'm not no one." Naruto settled into a fighting stance, his enhanced body thrumming with barely contained power. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm going to be Hokage. Then I apologize," Haku said softly, "for what I must do." Ice began forming around Haku's hands, crystallizing into weapons of frozen death. The masked shinobi was clearly preparing for a serious engagement, no longer underestimating their opponent. Naruto didn't give them the chance. He moved faster than he ever had before, his body flicker combining with his gate-enhanced speed to close the distance in an instant. His fist connected with Haku's raised guard, shattering the ice weapons and sending the masked shinobi skidding backward. "You are fast," Haku admitted, creating new ice formations to replace the destroyed ones. "But speed alone will not." Naruto was on them again, a relentless assault of punches and kicks that gave no opportunity for counterattack. Each strike that landed shattered more ice, broke through more defenses, drove Haku further and further back toward the edge of the bridge. But the masked shinobi was adapting, learning Naruto's patterns, finding gaps in his offense. A Senbon needle caught Naruto in the shoulder, then another in his thigh. The wounds healed almost instantly, but each one caused a momentary distraction. "Your healing is remarkable," Haku observed. "But it cannot protect you from precise strikes to vital points. If I target your brainstem, your heart, your spine, you'd have to hit me first." The exchange continued, both combatants pushing themselves to their limits. Naruto's healing factor kept him in the fight despite numerous injuries, while Haku's ice techniques provided both offense and defense in equal measure. It was, Naruto realized distantly, the most challenging fight of his life. And then everything changed. Across the bridge, the battle between Guy and Zabuza had reached a critical point. The demon of the mist was showing signs of fatigue, his movements slowing, his attacks becoming less precise. Guy, by contrast, seemed to be getting stronger with each passing moment. "Give up," Guy said, blocking another sword strike with his forearm. "You cannot win this fight." "I don't need to win." Zabuza's voice was cold. "I just need to keep you busy long enough for Haku to finish off your brats." Guy's eyes widened. He turned to look at his students, and saw Naruto standing over Haku's unconscious body, his skin still flush red with the third gate's power, his expression one of grim satisfaction. "Too late," Guy said, and there was something like pride in his voice. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Zabuza's face. His ultimate weapon had been defeated by a genin. His backup plan had failed. And now he was facing the full attention of one of Konoha's strongest jonin. "This isn't over," Zabuza growled, raising his sword for one final assault. "Oh, but it is." A new voice, oily and self-satisfied, echoed across the bridge. Everyone turned to see a small man in a business suit standing at the far end of the bridge, surrounded by dozens of armed mercenaries. His smile was cruel, his eyes calculating. "Gato," Zabuza snarled. "Zabuza." Gato's smile widened. "I must thank you for wearing down the Leaf Ninja. You've saved me quite a bit of money, I was planning to double-cross you and have my men finish the job anyway, but this is much more efficient. The mercenaries spread out, blocking any escape route. There were at least 50 of them, armed with swords and crossbows and various other weapons. You see, Gato continued, hiring missing nin is expensive. But hiring common thugs to kill exhausted shinobi? Much cheaper. He gestured grandly. Kill them all. The bridge builder too, if you can find him. The mercenaries advanced, their numbers overwhelming, their intent murderous. Guy assessed the situation instantly. Zabuza was wounded and likely unwilling to help. Lee was injured from Haku's earlier assault. Tenten was low on weapons. And Naruto. Naruto still had the third gate open. Naruto, Guy said quietly. I need you to hold them off. Can you do that? Naruto looked at the approaching army of thugs. 50 men, at least. All armed. All dangerous in their own way. He smiled. Watch me. What followed would become legend in the land of waves. Naruto moved through the mercenary ranks like a storm given human form. His fist struck with devastating force, sending men flying with each impact. His speed was such that they couldn't even track him, much less defend against his attacks. He wasn't trying to kill them. Despite everything, despite his anger and his pain, he remembered Guy's teachings about control. But he wasn't being gentle either. Broken bones, shattered weapons, terrified screams, the mercenaries fell before him like wheat before a scythe. It took less than 5 minutes for him to defeat all 50 of them. When it was over, Naruto stood in the center of a field of groaning, defeated mercenaries, his breath coming hard but his body still intact. The third gate closed automatically as his adrenaline faded, and exhaustion crashed over him like a wave. But he remained standing. He refused to fall. Gato, who had been watching the carnage with increasingly horrified disbelief, turned to flee, only to find Zabuza standing behind him, sword raised. Wait! Gato screamed. I'll pay you! Double, triple what I promised! Just let me! You promised to kill me! Zabuza interrupted. Did you think I would forget? The sword fell. In the aftermath, as the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days, the people of Wave emerged from their homes. They had heard the sounds of battle, had expected to find their bridge destroyed and their saviors dead. Instead, they found victory. The news spread quickly. Gato was dead, his mercenaries defeated, his tyranny ended. Within hours, the entire country was celebrating. Within days, construction on the bridge had resumed with unprecedented enthusiasm. Team Guy remained in Wave for another week, recovering from their injuries and helping with the final stages of construction. Naruto, in particular, became something of a local hero. Children followed him through the streets, vendors offered him free food, and even the most cynical adults looked at him with something approaching reverence. You saved us, Tazuna said on the day the bridge was completed. All of you, but especially you, Naruto. You were incredible. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, embarrassed by the praise. I just did what anyone would do. No. Tazuna's voice was firm. What you did was extraordinary. And we will never forget it. He turned to the completed bridge, stretching across the water toward the mainland, a symbol of hope and freedom for an entire nation. We've decided to name it, you know. The bridge. Name it? Naruto blinked. After what? Tazuna smiled. We're calling it the Great Naruto Bridge. In honor of the shinobi who gave us back our future. For once, Naruto was completely speechless. Chapter 7. The Chunin exams approach. 3 months after returning from the Land of Waves, Team Guy received news that would change everything. The message arrived via official courier, delivered directly to Guy's hands with the kind of urgency that suggested significant developments. Naruto, Lee, and Tenten watched their sensei read the document, his expression shifting from surprise to excitement to something approaching glee. What is it, Guy-sensei? Lee asked, practically bouncing with anticipation. Guy looked up, his eyes sparkling with that familiar intensity. It seems the Hokage believes we are ready for the next step in our youthful journey. He held up the scroll, his grin threatening to split his face. We have been nominated for the Chunin selection exams. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. The Chunin exams? Naruto's voice cracked with excitement. Already? This is wonderful news. Lee struck a pose that was unmistakably influenced by their teacher. At last, we will have the opportunity to demonstrate our flames of youth to the entire shinobi world. Even Tenten, usually the most reserved member of the team, couldn't suppress a grin. I've been waiting for this. A chance to prove ourselves against genin from other villages. Not just other villages. Guy interjected. The exams this year will be held here in Konoha, which means shinobi from the sand, mist, cloud, and other nations will be competing on our home ground. His expression grew slightly more serious. This is both an opportunity and a responsibility. We will be representing the hidden leaf before the eyes of the world. Naruto felt his heart pounding with anticipation. The chunin exams, the legendary trials that separated true shinobi from mere academy graduates. Passing them would mean recognition, respect, advancement in rank. It would mean he was one step closer to his ultimate dream. When do they start? He demanded. In 2 weeks. Guy folded the scroll and tucked it away. Which gives us just enough time for intensive preparation. The exams will test not just your individual capabilities but your ability to work as a team. We must ensure that all of you are ready. What kind of tests? Tenten asked, her analytical mind already working through possibilities. The format varies from year to year, but traditionally includes 3 stages: a written examination, a survival exercise, and one-on-one combat. Guy's voice took on a lecturing tone. The written test is designed to assess your intelligence-gathering capabilities and ability to perform under pressure. The survival exercise tests your teamwork, strategy, and endurance. And the combat stage. He paused, his smile sharpening. The combat stage is where the true warriors are separated from the pretenders. Combat. Naruto cracked his knuckles. That's where I'll shine. Do not underestimate the other stages. Guy warned. Many promising shinobi have failed the exams because they focus too heavily on combat at the expense of other skills. A true chunin must be capable in all areas. Guy-sensei is correct, Lee added. We must prepare for every possibility. Only then can we demonstrate the full extent of our youthful power. Guy nodded approvingly. Well said, Lee. Now then, let us begin our preparation immediately. We have 2 weeks to push ourselves beyond our limits. Yes, Guy-sensei. All 3 genin chorused. And with that, the countdown to the chunin exams began. The 2 weeks of preparation were some of the most intense training Naruto had ever experienced. Guy designed a comprehensive program that addressed all aspects of the exams. Mornings were dedicated to physical conditioning and combat training, hours of sparring, exercises, and gate manipulation that left Naruto drenched in sweat and gasping for air. Afternoons focused on strategy and teamwork, with Guy presenting various scenarios that they might encounter during the survival portion of the exams. And evenings were reserved for study, actually studying, something Naruto had always struggled with but now approached with newfound determination. The written portion of the exam is famously difficult, Tenten explained one evening, as she helped Naruto work through a series of practice problems. It's not really about getting the answers right, it's about demonstrating that you can gather intelligence without being caught. So, cheating? Naruto frowned at the incomprehensible questions in front of him. They want us to cheat? They want us to cheat well, without getting caught. Tenten's lips quirked. It's actually a useful skill for a shinobi. How many times have we been on missions where we needed to gather information discreetly? Naruto considered this. She had a point. Intelligence gathering was a fundamental part of shinobi work, and the ability to acquire information without detection was valuable. But there was still a part of him that rebelled against the idea of cheating on what was supposed to be a test of ability. I could probably answer some of these questions legitimately, he said slowly, studying the practice exam. I mean, they're hard, but they're not impossible. That's the other part of the test. Lee's voice came from across the room, where he was doing his own studying. The questions are designed so that only a true genius could answer them without cheating. Anyone who tries to answer honestly and fails is not only marked wrong, they're marked as someone who can't recognize their own limitations. That seems harsh. It is harsh. The exams are not meant to be easy. Lee looked up, his expression unusually serious. But we will succeed, Naruto. Our flames of youth will not be extinguished by a mere written test. Despite himself, Naruto felt a smile tugging at his lips. Lee's eternal optimism was infectious. You're right. We've got this. The combat preparation was, predictably, Naruto's favorite part of the training. Guy pushed all 3 of them to new heights, introducing techniques and combinations that they had never attempted before. For Naruto specifically, this meant working on his 4th gate. The 4th gate, the Gate of Pain, is located in the spinal cord, like the 3rd, Guy explained during one intense session. But where the 3rd gate increases your physical capabilities, the 4th gate pushes your body's tolerance to extreme levels. With it open, you can continue fighting through injuries that would incapacitate a normal person. My healing factor already lets me do that, Naruto pointed out. To an extent, yes. But the 4th gate amplifies this capability even further, while also increasing your strength and speed beyond the 3rd gate's enhancement. Guy's expression was grave. However, the damage caused by the 4th gate is correspondingly more severe. Even with your healing factor, maintaining it for extended periods could have consequences. What kind of consequences? Unknown. Severe internal injuries can accumulate like soft tissue or ligament damage. Suppressed pain also masks damage, leading to injuries worsening. We have never tested your healing factor against this level of strain. Guy met Naruto's eyes directly. I do not recommend attempting the fourth gate during the exams unless absolutely necessary. The third gate should be more than sufficient for any opponents you are likely to face. Naruto nodded, understanding the warning. He had no desire to push his healing factor to its breaking point, not until he had a better understanding of its limits. Instead, he focused on refining his use of the third gate, working to extend his maximum duration and improve his combat efficiency while it was active. By the end of the 2 weeks, he could maintain the third gate for nearly 15 minutes without his healing factor falling behind, an incredible improvement over his initial attempts. Lee's training focused on different aspects. He couldn't use the gates as freely as Naruto, his body lacked the regenerative capabilities, but he had been training them longer and had developed techniques that maximized their effectiveness while minimizing the damage he sustained. The primary lotus, Lee explained during one of their joint training sessions. It is a technique that can only be performed with the first gate open. I seize my opponent, launch us both into the air while spinning, and then drive them headfirst into the ground. That sounds brutal. It is extremely effective against opponents with strong defenses. Lee's eyes gleamed. I have been refining it for months. When properly executed, it can incapacitate even a Jonin-level opponent. Tenten's preparation was different still. As the team's range specialist, her role in combat was to provide support, control the battlefield, and create openings for Lee and Naruto to exploit. She had developed several new weapons specifically for the exams, specialized scrolls that could deploy dozens of projectiles simultaneously, explosive tags that could be triggered remotely, even a few prototype devices that bordered on the experimental. I've been working on this for a while, she admitted, showing Naruto a scroll covered in intricate sealing patterns. It's a weapon summoning system that lets me call specific tools to my hands instantly, without needing to unseal them from storage. It's not complete yet, but it could be a game changer if I can get it working. That sounds incredible. It will be. Tenten's smile was confident. By the time the exams start, I'll have it perfected. As the 2 weeks drew to a close, Guy gathered his team for one final assessment. You have all trained hard, he said, his voice carrying an unusual weight. You have pushed yourselves beyond what you thought possible. And now, on the eve of the chunin exams, I want you to know something. He paused, looking at each of them in turn. Lee, with his boundless enthusiasm and unwavering determination. Tenten, with her analytical mind and weapons expertise. Naruto, with his healing factor and growing mastery of the gates. I am proud of all of you. Regardless of what happens in the exams, you have proven yourselves worthy of being called shinobi of the hidden leaf. Lee's eyes were glistening. Tenten blinked rapidly, clearly affected despite her attempts to maintain composure. And Naruto felt something warm blooming in his chest, a feeling he was still learning to identify as belonging. That said, Guy's voice boomed suddenly, his usual energy returning. I fully expect you to dominate these exams. You will show the world what the power of youth can accomplish. You will make Konoha proud. Yes, Guy-sensei, all three shouted in unison. Then go. Rest tonight. And tomorrow, show them what Team Guy is capable of. The morning of the first exam dawned bright and clear. Naruto arrived at the academy early, his nerves jangling with anticipation. The building was already crowded with genin from various villages. He could see headbands from sand, sound, grass, and several other nations he didn't immediately recognize. Naruto! Lee's voice cut through the noise. Over here! He pushed through the crowd to where Lee and Tenten were waiting near the main entrance. Both looked as keyed up as he felt, though they expressed it differently. Lee was practically vibrating with energy, while Tenten's gaze kept scanning the crowd, assessing potential opponents. Quite a turnout, Tenten murmured. I count at least 60 teams. That's a lot of competition. More opponents means more opportunities to prove ourselves, Lee declared. I cannot wait to test my skills against the best other villages have to offer. Naruto nodded, but his attention was elsewhere. He had spotted a familiar figure across the courtyard, dark hair, intense eyes, an expression of brooding superiority that he would recognize anywhere. Sasuke Uchiha. Their eyes met across the crowd, and Naruto felt a surge of complicated emotions. He and Sasuke had been rivals at the academy, the dead last versus the genius, always competing for the same goals. They had been assigned to the same graduating class but different teams, and Naruto hadn't seen him since. Sasuke looked different. The arrogance was still there, but beneath it was something that hadn't been present before, a cold edge that spoke of experiences Naruto could only imagine. For a moment, either of them moved. Then Sasuke's eyes narrowed slightly, and he turned away, disappearing into the crowd with his teammates. Who was that? Lee asked, following Naruto's gaze. Sasuke Uchiha. He was in my academy class. Naruto's voice was carefully neutral. The last surviving member of the Uchiha clan. The one who was targeted by his own brother? Tenten's expression was thoughtful. I've heard about him. Supposed to be a prodigy. He is. Naruto didn't elaborate. His relationship with Sasuke was complicated enough without trying to explain it. Then we may face him in the combat portion. Lee's eyes sparkled. A chance to test myself against a legendary bloodline. How exciting! Let's focus on getting there first, Tenten suggested practically. The written exam starts in 30 minutes. We should find the room. The three of them made their way into the academy, following the signs toward the examination area. The hallways were packed with genin, creating a chaotic atmosphere that made navigation difficult. It was on the second floor that they encountered their first obstacle. A group of older genin were blocking access to one of the corridors, preventing other teams from passing. As Naruto approached, he could see two of them physically pushing back a team that was trying to get through. This is the examination room, one of the blockers declared, pointing to a door marked with a large 301. Anyone who isn't tough enough to get past US doesn't deserve to take the exam anyway. Something about the situation felt wrong to Naruto. He focused his enhanced senses, trying to identify what was bothering him, and almost immediately spotted the discrepancy. That's not room 301, he said quietly to Lee and Tenten. Look at the floor marker. We're on the second floor, not the third. This is room 201 with a genjutsu making it look like 301. Tenten's eyes widened. A fake checkpoint. Designed to weed out genin who can't see through basic illusions. Should we say something? Lee asked, looking at the team being blocked. It seems unfair to let them fail because of a trick. If they can't recognize a simple genjutsu, they're not ready for the exams anyway. Tenten replied pragmatically. Let's just go around. They found an alternate route to the third floor, where the real room 301 awaited. The door was larger than the others, and even from outside, Naruto could sense the presence of dozens of shinobi waiting within. This is it, he breathed. Lee placed a hand on his shoulder. We are ready, Naruto. Remember, we are Team Guy. Together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. Tenten nodded, her hand resting on the weapon scroll at her hip. Let's show them what we're made of. Naruto took a deep breath, centering himself. Then he pushed open the door. The examination room was massive, easily large enough to hold the 100-plus genin who sat at individual desks arranged in neat rows. At the front, several chunin proctors stood waiting, their expressions revealing nothing. As Team Guy entered, every eye in the room turned to look at them. The weight of so many gazes, curious, calculating, hostile, was almost physical. But Naruto refused to be intimidated. He met the stares head-on, his chin lifted, his expression confident. He was here to become a chunin, and nothing was going to stand in his way. Find your assigned seats. One of the proctors called out. The examination will begin shortly. Team Guy separated, each finding their designated desk among the sea of unfamiliar faces. Naruto ended up near the back of the room, flanked by genin from villages he didn't recognize. Ahead of him, he could see the back of Lee's bowl cut, and further still, Tenten's distinctive hair buns. His team. His friends. His family, in a way that mattered more than blood. Attention. The proctor at the front stepped forward, his scarred face arranged in a fierce expression. I am Ibiki Marino, and I will be your examiner for the first phase of the chunin selection exams. Before we begin, there are rules you must understand. He proceeded to explain the examination format, a written test with 10 questions, strict penalties for cheating, the collective scoring system that meant one team member's failure would doom the entire group. It was designed to be stressful, to create pressure, to force the genin to make difficult decisions under adverse conditions. In other words, exactly what Tenten had described. The 10th question will be given separately. Ibiki continued. You have 45 minutes to complete the first 9. Begin. Papers were distributed, and the room fell into tense silence as genin across the hall began reading the questions. Naruto looked at his paper and felt his stomach sink. The questions were impossible. Not just difficult, genuinely impossible for anyone who hadn't spent years studying advanced shinobi theory. Questions about tactical formations, obscure historical events, complex mathematical calculations that made his head spin just looking at them. This is the test, he reminded himself. The questions aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to force us to gather intelligence. He scanned the room, looking for potential sources of information. Several genin were writing confidently, obviously either geniuses or successful cheaters. Others looked as lost as Naruto felt. And the proctors circled the room like sharks, eliminating teams whose cheating attempts had been detected. The clock ticked on. Naruto considered his options. Tenten had been right. The test wasn't about the answers, it was about demonstrating espionage capabilities. But his particular skill set didn't lend itself to subtle information gathering. His gates enhanced physical abilities, not perception or stealth. His healing factor was useless here. Except, he focused inward, reaching for the familiar sensation of the first gate, accessing the enhanced sensory capabilities it provided. It worked. His hearing sharpened, his vision clarified. He could now pick up whispered conversations from across the room, could read the papers of genin several rows away by observing the movements of their pens. Slowly, carefully, he began filling in answers. 45 minutes later, Ibiki called time on the first 9 questions. "Now," he said, his scarred face somehow even more intimidating than before, "we come to the 10th question. But before I give it to you, there is a new rule you must understand." He explained that any genin who chose not to answer the 10th question would fail immediately, taking their entire team with them. However, anyone who chose to answer but got it wrong would be banned from taking the chunin exams ever again. The room erupted in protests. "That's not fair! You can't do that! What about genin who've taken the exam before? They obviously weren't banned." Ibiki's smile was cold. "Rules can change. This year they have. Now, anyone who wishes to withdraw, raise your hand. Your team will leave immediately." One hand went up. Then another. Then a cascade, as the pressure became too much for genin who weren't willing to risk their entire futures on a single question. Naruto watched them go, feeling a strange mix of sympathy and contempt. He understood their fear, of course he did. But giving up before even hearing the question? That wasn't something he could ever bring himself to do. He looked for Lee and Tenten in the crowd. Both were still seated, their expressions determined. They weren't going anywhere. Good. More teams departed as Ibiki let the silence stretch, the psychological pressure doing its work. Finally, when the exodus seemed to have stopped, he spoke again. 78 genin remain. Not bad. His eyes swept across the room. For those of you who chose to stay, I have one thing to say. He paused, letting the tension build to unbearable levels. You pass. The room exploded. What? What do you mean we pass? What about the 10th question? Ibiki's smile shifted, becoming less cold, almost approving. The 10th question was the choice itself. A chunin must be willing to accept dangerous missions without knowing all the details. A chunin must be able to make difficult decisions under pressure. A chunin must never give up, even when the odds seem impossible. He gestured at the remaining genin. All of you demonstrated those qualities by choosing to stay. That is what this exam was truly testing, not your knowledge, but your courage. Naruto felt a grin spreading across his face. They had done it. They had passed the first phase. But Ibiki's voice cut through the murmured celebrations. This is only the beginning. The second phase of the exam will be conducted by a different examiner, and I assure you, it will be far more challenging than anything you have faced so far. As if on cue, the window at the front of the room exploded inward, and a figure burst through in a whirlwind of motion. Listen up, maggots! The woman who had appeared was dressed in a mesh bodysuit and a tan trench coat, her purple hair tied back in a spiky ponytail. I am Anko Mitarashi, the examiner for the second phase. You think you've got what it takes? Come to Training Ground 44 tomorrow morning and prove it! She looked at the remaining genin with predatory anticipation. Welcome to the Forest of Death. Chapter 8, The Forest of Death. Training Ground 44 lived up to its ominous reputation. The forest stretched before them like something out of a nightmare, trees so massive they blocked out the sun, undergrowth so dense it could hide entire armies, and an atmosphere of danger that seemed to seep from the very ground itself. Anko Mitarashi stood before the gathered genin, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. This is the Forest of Death. For the next 5 days it will be your home, your battlefield, and for some of you, your grave. She explained the rules. Each team would receive either a Heaven Scroll or an Earth Scroll. To pass, they needed to obtain both scrolls and reach the tower at the forest center within the time limit. There were no restrictions on methods, theft, combat, ambush, anything was fair game. One more thing, Anko added, her eyes gleaming. Opening your scroll before reaching the tower will result in automatic disqualification. Don't even think about it. Team Guy received a Heaven Scroll. Naruto tucked it into an inner pocket of his vest, secured by multiple straps to prevent theft. Around them, other teams were making similar preparations, sizing up potential targets and threats. Our strategy? Tenten asked quietly. Find a team with an Earth Scroll, take it, head straight for the tower. Naruto replied. Simple and direct. I agree, he added. We should not waste time with unnecessary complications. The sooner we complete this phase, the more time we will have to rest before the next. Guy's training had emphasized the importance of decisive action. When you knew what you needed to do, hesitation only made things harder. The signal came, a flare launching into the sky, and the gates opened. Team Guy entered the forest of death. The forest was even more oppressive from the inside. The trees loomed overhead like ancient gods, their canopy so thick that only scattered beams of sunlight penetrated to the forest floor. The air was heavy with moisture and the sounds of unseen creatures, creating an atmosphere of constant tension. Naruto led the way, his senses, pushed to their limits even without opening a gate, scanning for potential threats. Behind him, Lee moved with silent precision, while Tenten brought up the rear with her weapons ready. They had been walking for perhaps an hour when Naruto's instincts screamed a warning. Stop! The team froze instantly, their training kicking in. Naruto turned slowly, his eyes searching the surrounding undergrowth. There. Movement barely visible, a team of sound ninja, positioned in ambush formation around them. We're surrounded, he murmured. 3 opponents. Sound headbands. Do we engage? Lee asked, his body already tensing for combat. Naruto considered their options. The sound ninja were clearly experienced, their positioning was good, their approach silent. But they were also clearly hoping for the element of surprise, which they had just lost. Let them make the first move. We'll counter. The words were barely out of his mouth when the attack came. One of the sound ninja, a hunched figure with tubes protruding from his arms, thrust his palms forward. A wave of concentrated sound blasted toward Team Guy, powerful enough to shatter rock. Lee moved first, launching himself sideways to dodge while simultaneously throwing a kunai at the attacker. The knife was deflected by a second sound ninja, a girl with long dark hair, but it accomplished its purpose of disrupting their formation. Naruto went straight for the third opponent, a boy covered in bandages whose eyes gleamed with malicious intelligence. His first gate opened automatically, flooding his body with power as he closed the distance in a blur. The bandaged ninja was fast, faster than expected. He dodged Naruto's opening strike and countered with some kind of sound-based attack that made Naruto's ears ring. But the ringing faded almost instantly as his healing factor compensated, leaving him momentarily disoriented but otherwise unaffected. That should have destroyed your eardrums, the sound ninja said, surprise evident in his voice. What are you? What did you say? Naruto grinned fiercely. My turn. The fight intensified. Naruto and Lee tag-teamed their respective opponents, the months of training together translating into seamless coordination. Meanwhile, Tenten unleashed a hail of weapons that kept the third sound ninja pinned down and unable to support her teammates. It was over in minutes. The 3 sound ninja lay on the forest floor, conscious but clearly defeated. Naruto searched them quickly, finding, to his disappointment, only a heaven scroll. Same as ours, he muttered. No good. We could still take it, Tenten suggested. Extra scrolls might come in useful. Good idea. Naruto pocketed the duplicate scroll. Let's move. The noise from this fight probably attracted attention. They left the defeated sound team behind and continued deeper into the forest. The hours blurred together. Team Guy encountered 3 more teams during their trek through the forest. 2 had heaven scrolls, like them, and were dispatched without serious difficulty. The third had no scroll at all. Their original had been stolen by another team earlier. We are wasting time, Lee observed after the third encounter. At this rate, we will not find an Earth scroll before the deadline. He's right, Tenten agreed. We need to change our strategy. Maybe wait near the tower and ambush teams that have already completed their collection. Naruto was about to respond when a massive surge of chakra washed over him, dark, malevolent, and completely overwhelming. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to flee, to get as far away from that presence as possible. What is that? Lee's voice was uncharacteristically shaky. I don't know. Naruto's own voice wasn't much steadier. But it's coming from that direction. He pointed toward a section of forest maybe a kilometer away. Whatever it is, it's powerful. Dangerously powerful. Should we investigate? Tenten asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. No. Naruto's response was immediate. We stay on mission. Get the scroll, get to the tower. Whatever that is, it's not our problem. But even as he said it, something nagged at him. The chakra signature had felt familiar somehow. Like something he had encountered before, though he couldn't place where or when. The feeling faded as they put distance between themselves and the source, but it didn't disappear entirely. It lingered at the edge of his awareness, a persistent reminder that there were forces in this forest far beyond his current level. They found their Earth scroll on the morning of the third day. The team that had it, a squad from the hidden grass, never saw them coming. Naruto used his second gate and body flicker combination to appear directly in front of their leader, while Lee and Tenten attacked from flanking positions. The engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. "We have what we need," Tenten announced, holding up the Earth scroll triumphantly. "Now we just need to reach the tower." "How far?" Lee asked. "Maybe 5 kilometers. We can make it in under an hour if we push." They pushed. The final stretch of forest seemed determined to stop them. They encountered giant centipedes, carnivorous plants, quicksand, and, at one point, a nest of oversized leeches that required Naruto to open the third gate to incinerate with sheer speed-generated friction. But nothing could stop Team Guy when they were this close to their goal. The tower appeared through the trees like a beacon of hope, a massive structure at the heart of the forest, its entrance guarded by chunin examiners. Naruto felt a surge of triumph as they approached. "Identification?" one of the guards asked. They presented their scrolls, both heaven and earth, and were waved through the entrance. Inside, they found a large hall with a cryptic message on the wall and instructions to open their scrolls. Following the directions, they broke the seals simultaneously. And Guy appeared in a burst of smoke. "Congratulations!" Their sensei's voice boomed through the hall. "You have completed the second phase of the chunin selection exams. I am so proud of all of you! Guy-sensei!" Lee's eyes were streaming with tears of joy. "We did it! We actually did it! Of course you did! I never doubted you for a moment." Guy swept all three of them into a crushing group embrace. "Your flames of youth burn brighter than ever!" Naruto couldn't help laughing, the tension of the past 3 days finally releasing. They had made it. They had survived the forest of death. "How did we do compared to other teams?" Tenten asked once Guy released them. "You are the third team to arrive. Only 2 others completed the phase faster." Guy's smile was proud. "And you still have 2 days to rest before the next stage begins." 2 days. Naruto could work with that. Time to recover, to reflect, to prepare for whatever came next. "What is the next stage?" he asked. "Individual combat." Guy's expression grew slightly more serious. "You will face opponents from your fellow genin in one-on-one matches. The results will determine who advances to the final round and ultimately, who earns promotion to chunin." Individual combat. Naruto's area of expertise. He felt a fierce grin spreading across his face. "I can't wait." Chapter 9: Preliminary Matches. The tower's main hall had been transformed into a makeshift arena. Bleachers lined the walls, filled with the genin who had completed the second phase. Naruto counted 24 participants remaining, 8 teams, a significant reduction from the original 78. The weeding process had been brutal. In the center of the hall stood a large electronic board currently blank but clearly intended to display matched pairings. Before it stood the third Hokage himself, flanked by the various Jonin senseis and examination officials. First, the Hokage began, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "I would like to congratulate all of you on surviving the second phase. You have demonstrated skill, determination, and the qualities we look for in chunin candidates." He paused, letting the words sink in. "However, the number of remaining participants exceeds our expectations. We will therefore be conducting preliminary matches before the final stage of the exams. These matches will determine who advances." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Preliminary matches. This wasn't standard. The exams must have had more survivors than usual. "The matches will be one-on-one, with pairings determined randomly by this board." The Hokage gestured at the electronic display. "When your name appears, proceed to the arena floor. Each match continues until one combatant surrenders, is rendered unable to continue, or is declared the winner by the proctor." He nodded to a sickly-looking man standing near the arena, presumably the proctor. "Gecko Hate will oversee the matches. I wish you all the best of luck." The board lit up, names scrolling across its surface before settling on the first pairing. Sasuke Uchiha vs. Yoroi Kado. Naruto's attention sharpened as Sasuke stepped forward. The Uchiha survivor looked pale, paler than usual, and there was something stiff about his movements that suggested injury or illness. But his eyes were sharp, his expression focused. His opponent Yoroi was an older genin from the Leaf, one of the participants Naruto didn't recognize. He had a confident smirk on his face as he took his position across from Sasuke. "This should be quick," someone muttered nearby. "Sasuke Uchiha is a prodigy. This Yoroi guy doesn't stand a chance." But Naruto wasn't so sure. Something about Sasuke's condition concerned him. The Uchiha was clearly not at full strength. The match began. Yoroi attacked immediately, pressing Sasuke with taijutsu that seemed designed to make contact rather than cause damage. Every time his hands touched Sasuke, the Uchiha flinched back, his movements becoming more sluggish. "Chakra absorption," Tenten murmured from beside Naruto. "That's Yoroi's technique. He's draining Sasuke's energy with every touch." It was a clever strategy. Against most opponents, it would probably work. But Sasuke was not most opponents. Even weakened, even clearly suffering from something that was limiting his capabilities, Sasuke's combat instincts were razor sharp. He adapted to Yorui's technique, began fighting defensively, minimizing contact while looking for openings. And then, when the moment was right, he struck. Lion Combo! The series of attacks was brutal and precise, a combination of kicks and punches that launched Yoroi into the air, kept him suspended, and then drove him into the ground with devastating force. The older genin didn't get up. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha! The crowd erupted in cheers. Naruto found himself reluctantly impressed. Even injured, even fighting with some kind of handicap, Sasuke had won decisively. The gap between the Uchiha prodigy and ordinary genin was as wide as ever. More matches followed. A team from the Sand produced impressive results, with their red-haired member, Gaara, according to the board, defeating his opponent without taking a single hit or even seeming to move. His control over Sand was absolute, terrifying in its precision and power. Lee watched Gaara's match with particular intensity. That one, he murmured. He will be a worthy opponent. If you face him, Tenten cautioned. Don't get ahead of yourself. The board cycled through more pairings. Naruto watched as genin from various villages tested their skills against each other, some matches ending quickly, others stretching into prolonged battles of attrition. And then his name appeared. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Kiba Inuzuka. Naruto felt a surge of anticipation as he rose from his seat. Kiba, he remembered the boy from the academy. Loud, aggressive, partnered with that dog of his. This would be an interesting fight. He made his way down to the arena floor, where Kiba and his Niken, Akamaru, were already waiting. The dog ninja had a cocky grin on his face. Well, the dead last from our academy class. Kiba cracked his knuckles. This is going to be easier than I thought. You'd think that. Naruto settled into his fighting stance. But I'm not the same person I was back then. Hate, the proctor, raised his hand. Combatants ready? Begin! Kiba attacked immediately, launching forward with his partner in perfect synchronization. The Inuzuka fighting style was designed for overwhelming aggression, fast, unpredictable, and enhanced by the cooperation between human and Niken. But Naruto had trained with Lee for months. He knew how to deal with fast. He opened the first gate. The power surged through him, and suddenly Kiba's movements didn't seem quite so fast anymore. Naruto sidestepped the initial charge, deflected a slash from Akamaru, and delivered a palm strike to Kiba's chest that sent him flying backward. What the? Kiba scrambled to his feet, his expression shifting from confidence to wariness. Since when could you move like that? Since I got serious about training. Naruto's voice was calm despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. You want to see what else I've learned? Kiba growled, his pride clearly stung. Akamaru! Man-beast clone! The Niken transformed, taking on a form identical to Kiba's. Now there were two of them, their movements even more coordinated than before. Fong over Fong! They launched into a spinning attack, becoming twin cyclones of teeth and claws that tore through the air toward Naruto. It was a devastating technique, he had seen it in demonstrations during their academy days. But it had one weakness, momentum. Naruto waited until the last possible moment, then used his body flicker to disappear, reappearing behind the spinning attackers. They overshot their target, crashing into the wall of the arena with enough force to crack the stone. Before they could recover, Naruto was on them. A kick sent the real Kiba flying, while a precise strike to the transformed Akamaru forced the Niken to revert to its true form. The dog whimpered, clearly hurt but not seriously injured. Give up, Naruto said, standing over Kiba's prone form. You can't win this. Kiba's eyes flashed with defiance. I never give up. He launched a wild punch that Naruto easily caught. For a moment they stood frozen, Kiba's fist trapped in Naruto's grip, their eyes locked in silent contest. Then Naruto squeezed. Kiba's face went white with pain as the bones in his hand ground together. Okay. I surrender. Naruto released him immediately, stepping back as Hate declared the match over. Winner Naruto Uzumaki. The crowd's reaction was mixed, surprise from those who remembered Naruto's academy reputation, approval from those who could appreciate his improved skills. But Naruto wasn't paying attention to any of that. He was looking at his teammates. Lee was on his feet, pumping both fists in the air and shouting something about the flames of youth burning bright. Tenten was clapping with a satisfied smile. And Guy was crying. Openly, unashamedly, tears streaming down his face as he gave Naruto a thumbs up that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Naruto felt warmth spread through his chest. He had won. He had proven that he was more than just a dead last, more than just a demon brat, more than what anyone had ever expected of him. And this was just the beginning. The preliminary matches continued. Lee's turn came against a sound ninja named Dosu, whose arm-mounted sound amplifier made for a dangerous weapon. But Lee's speed proved overwhelming. Even without opening any gates, he was fast enough to dodge the sonic attacks and deliver devastating counters. The match ended in Lee's decisive victory. Tenten, unfortunately, drew a more difficult opponent, the female member of the Sand team, Temari, whose giant battle fan created wind techniques that neutralized Tenten's weapon volleys before they could reach her. Despite her best efforts, Tenten couldn't overcome the disadvantageous matchup and was eliminated. "I'm sorry," she said afterward, her expression a mix of frustration and disappointment. "I tried everything, but her wind techniques just—" "You fought well," Guy interrupted gently. "There's no shame in losing to a superior matchup. What matters is that you gave your best effort." Tenten nodded, clearly still upset but accepting the loss with grace. She took a seat in the stands to watch the remaining matches, her analytical mind already working on strategies to overcome similar opponents in the future. The final match of the preliminaries pitted Gaara of the Sand against the Leaf Genin. The match was brutal and one-sided, ending with him buried up to his neck in sand and begging for mercy. Gaara's expression never changed throughout the entire fight. There was something deeply unsettling about his calm, almost bored demeanor as he systematically dismantled his opponent. "That one," Lee murmured, watching with intense focus. "He is incredibly strong. And incredibly dangerous," Guy added, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "The Sand's Jinchuriki, a container for a tailed beast, like certain other individuals in this arena." Naruto felt a chill run down his spine. Jinchuriki. Like him. Gaara carried a tailed beast inside him, just as Naruto carried the 9 tails. But where Naruto had learned to channel his healing factor productively, Gaara seemed to have embraced the darkness of his burden. There was something broken in those pale green eyes, something that spoke of endless loneliness and barely contained madness. "Is that what I could have become?" Naruto wondered. "If I hadn't found Guy-sensei, if I hadn't found Lee and Tenten, would I be like him?" The thought was sobering. With the preliminaries concluded, the Hokage announced the pairings for the final round, which would take place in 1 month's time. The bracket was as follows. Match 1, Naruto Uzumaki vs. Neji Hyuga. Match 2, Sasuke Uchiha vs. Gaara of the Sand. Match 3, Shikamaru Nara vs. Temari of the Sand. Match 4, Rock Lee vs. Kankuro of the Sand. Match 5, winners of matches 1 to 4 continue in tournament bracket. Naruto studied the pairings with interest. Neji Hyuga, the prodigy of the Hyuga clan, possessor of the Byakugan. He had seen Neji's preliminary match, watched as the older genin dismantled his opponent with surgical precision using the gentle fist style. This would not be an easy fight. "Neji is very strong," Lee said quietly, appearing at Naruto's side. "He was the top graduate of his academy class and has been called a genius of the Hyuga clan. You know him? He is on our sister team, Team 3, under Jonin Kurenai Yuhi." Lee's expression was complicated. "We have trained together on occasion. His skills are formidable. But you don't like him." Lee hesitated, then shook his head. "It is not that I dislike him. But Neji has a certain philosophy that I find troubling. He believes that fate is absolute, that people cannot change their destinies. That hard work and determination are meaningless in the face of natural talent." Naruto's jaw tightened. He knew people like that, people who had looked at him and seen only the demon, only the failure, only what he was born as rather than what he could become. "Then I'll just have to prove him wrong." Lee's face split into a familiar grin. "I knew you would say that. This is why you are my eternal rival, Naruto. Your flames of youth are truly inspiring." "Thanks, bushy brow." Naruto returned the smile. "But I'm going to need a lot of training before that match. Neji's gentle fist could shut down my chakra points, which would make the gates much harder to open." "Then we will train together," Lee declared. "Guy-sensei will help us prepare. 1 month is plenty of time to become even stronger." From across the room, Guy's voice boomed out. "Did someone say training? Lee, Naruto, come! We have work to do. The flames of youth wait for no one." Naruto shook his head, but he was smiling as he followed his sensei and teammates out of the tower. 1 month to prepare for the fight of his life. He couldn't wait. Chapter 10, The Month of Training. The month that followed was the most intensive training period of Naruto's life. Guy designed a regimen specifically focused on preparing for the fight against Neji. The Hyuga prodigy's gentle fist style relied on striking chakra points to disable opponents' energy flow, a technique that could theoretically prevent Naruto from opening the gates at all. "The key is speed," Guy explained during their first planning session. "Neji's Byakugan gives him 360-degree vision and the ability to see chakra points with perfect clarity. But even his eyes have limitations. They cannot track movement that exceeds certain speeds. So I need to be faster than his eyes can follow? Precisely. With the third gate open, you should be able to match or exceed that threshold. But we cannot rely on the gates alone. Opening them takes time, and Neji will not wait for you to power up. The solution was to develop Naruto's base speed to the point where he could contest Neji even without the gates, then use gate activation as a finishing move once he had created an opening. It was brutal training. Hours of sprint exercises, reaction drills, and sparring against Lee, who was himself already blindingly fast. Guy pushed both of them to their absolute limits, accepting nothing less than total effort. But the results spoke for themselves. By the end of the second week, Naruto was noticeably faster than he had been at the start. By the third week, he could occasionally match Lee's speed in short bursts without using the gates at all. Excellent progress, Guy declared after one particularly grueling session. Your natural speed has increased by nearly 40%. Combined with your gate capabilities, you will be a formidable opponent for anyone in the tournament. It's not enough, Naruto replied, catching his breath. Neji is a genius. I need something else, something unexpected that he won't be prepared for. Guy considered this. You have a point. The element of surprise can be decisive in combat. He stroked his chin thoughtfully. Have you considered developing a signature technique? Something uniquely yours that cannot be predicted or countered. A signature technique? Naruto had been thinking about this for a while, actually. His current combat style was effective but generic, enhanced speed and strength combined with solid taijutsu fundamentals. It worked, but it wasn't distinctive. I have some ideas, he admitted. But I'm not sure if they're practical. Share them. Perhaps we can refine them together. Naruto explained his concept. It was based on combining multiple elements of his abilities, the gates, his healing factor, the body flicker, into a single devastating attack. The idea was ambitious, possibly even reckless. Guy listened carefully, asking questions and pointing out potential issues. By the end of the discussion, they had developed a theoretical framework for the technique. It will be risky, Guy warned. Combining the body flicker with gate-enhanced movement could create stress that even your healing factor may take more time to compensate for. I know. But if it works, it could be the most powerful taijutsu attack ever created by a genin. Guy's expression was a complex mix of pride and concern. We will test it carefully, in controlled conditions. No unnecessary risks. The next 2 weeks were dedicated to developing the new technique. There were failures, many failures, some of which left Naruto bedridden while his healing factor repaired extensive damage. But gradually, through trial and error and sheer stubborn determination, the technique began to take shape. By the end of the month, Naruto had something truly special. The night before the tournament, Team Guy gathered at their favorite training ground for a final meeting. The sun had set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Naruto, Lee, and Tenten sat around a small fire, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. Guy stood nearby, his expression unusually contemplative. Tomorrow, 2 of you will compete in the chunin exam finals, Guy began. You have trained harder than any genin I have ever taught. You have faced challenges that would have broken lesser shinobi. And you have emerged stronger for it. He looked at each of them in turn, Lee, with his boundless enthusiasm and unyielding determination, Tenten, with her analytical mind and unwavering support, Naruto, with his healing factor and growing mastery of the gates. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I am proud of all of you. You are not just my students, you are my family. And that will never change, no matter what the future holds. Lee was crying openly, as usual. Tenten was blinking rapidly, trying to maintain composure. And Naruto felt that familiar warmth in his chest, the feeling of belonging that he had discovered through his time with this team. Thanks, Sensei, he said quietly. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did. For teaching me that I could be more than what people expected. For. He paused, struggling to find the right words. For being there. Guy's smile was brilliant but gentle. The pleasure has been entirely mine, Naruto. Now then, rest well tonight. Tomorrow, we show the world what the flames of youth can accomplish. Yes, Guy-sensei, all 3 chorused. And somewhere, in the depths of Naruto's soul, he felt something stir, the Nine Tails, that ancient presence that had been his burden since birth. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like potential. The day of the chunin exam finals dawned bright and clear. The arena was packed with spectators, nobility from across the land of fire, dignitaries from allied nations, shinobi of all ranks come to witness the next generation prove themselves. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Naruto stood in the competitors' area, watching the crowd fill the stands. Beside him, Lee was doing warm-up exercises, while the other finalists prepared in their own ways. Sasuke had arrived looking pale but determined. Gaara stood alone, his sand swirling ominously around his feet. The sand and leaf competitors eyed each other with barely concealed tension. First match! The announcer's voice rang out across the arena. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Neji Hyuga. Combatants, please enter the arena. Naruto took a deep breath, centering himself. This was it, the moment he had trained for, the opportunity to prove himself to the world. He stepped out into the arena floor, the roar of the crowd washing over him like a wave. Across from him, Neji Hyuga walked with the calm confidence of someone who had already decided the outcome. Before we begin, Neji said, his voice carrying easily despite the noise of the crowd. I want you to know something. Your fate was sealed the moment the bracket was announced. A failure like you cannot defeat a genius like me. Naruto felt his jaw tighten. We'll see about that. Neji's lips curled in a contemptuous smile. Indeed we will. Byakugan. The veins around Neji's eyes bulged as his bloodline limit activated, revealing the chakra network that underlaid all living things. His fighting stance was perfect, balanced, ready to exploit any weakness. The proctor raised his hand. Begin! Neji attacked first, closing the distance with speed that would have caught most genin off guard. His fingers struck toward Naruto's chest, aimed at vital chakra points. But Naruto wasn't there anymore. He had moved, not with the body flicker, but with pure speed born of a month's intensive training. His fist was already swinging toward Neji's exposed side. The Hyuga prodigy spun, barely avoiding the blow. His expression flickered with surprise before settling back into cold calculation. Impressive, he acknowledged. You're faster than I expected. But it won't matter. I can see every move you make before you make it. Then let's test that. Naruto attacked in earnest, launching a rapid series of strikes that forced Neji onto the defensive. Each blow was aimed at vulnerable points, designed to overwhelm rather than overpower. It was the fighting style Lee had helped him develop, relentless pressure that gave the opponent no chance to counterattack. But Neji was equal to the challenge. His gentle fist deflected each strike with minimal movement, and his occasional counters forced Naruto to disengage or risk chakra point damage. They separated, circling each other. The crowd watched in breathless silence. You've improved since the academy, Neji admitted. But talent like mine cannot be overcome through mere hard work. It's time I showed you the gap between us. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Neji's movement became a blur as he activated his clan's legendary technique. 64 strikes, each targeting a specific chakra point, executed in perfect sequence. It was a devastating attack that had never been successfully defended against. Naruto opened the first gate. Power surged through him, accelerating his movements to match Neji's assault. He blocked, deflected, dodged, not every strike, but enough. The ones that landed hurt, sent spikes of pain through his body as chakra points were sealed. But his healing factor worked even on chakra damage. The sealed points reopened almost as quickly as Neji closed them. What? Neji's concentration faltered as he realized what was happening. That's impossible! Your chakra points should be sealed. My body heals from everything, Naruto replied, pressing his advantage. Including that. He opened the second gate. The world became clearer. Neji's movements, which had seemed blurringly fast, now appeared almost manageable. Naruto's counterattack drove the Hyuga prodigy backward, each strike landing with enhanced force. But Neji was adapting. His defensive technique shifted, becoming tighter, more efficient. He was buying time, looking for an opening. Kaiten! Neji spun, expelling chakra from every point on his body to create a rotating shield of energy. Naruto's attack bounced off harmlessly, the force redirected into the ground. The Hyuga's absolute defense, Neji declared, breathing hard but still confident. No taijutsu attack can penetrate it. This match is over. Naruto felt something shift inside him. This was the moment he had trained for, the moment to reveal his secret weapon. You're right, he said quietly. No taijutsu attack can penetrate that defense. He reached for the third gate. Felt the dam inside him, the massive barrier holding back an ocean of power. But this isn't just taijutsu. The third gate opened. His skin flushed red as blood rushed to the surface. His muscles swelled with power that threatened to tear them apart. Pain flooded through every nerve, and was immediately countered by his healing factor, creating that familiar equilibrium of destruction and regeneration. But he didn't stop there. He reached for the fourth gate. In the stands, Guy shot to his feet, his expression shifting from pride to alarm. Naruto, no! The fourth gate is too dangerous! But his words were lost in the roar of the crowd, and Naruto couldn't have heard them anyway. He was too focused on the technique he had spent the last 2 weeks developing. The gate of pain opened. If the third gate had been a furnace, the fourth gate was the heart of a star. Power flooded through Naruto's body, pushing his healing factor to its limits. He could his insides breaking a destruction so intense that his consciousness nearly fractured from the strain. But he held on. Held on through sheer willpower, through stubborn refusal to fail, through everything that made him who he was. 8 inner gates, fourth gate, gate of pain. His aura became visible, a green shimmer of pure energy surrounding his body. The ground cracked beneath his feet from the sheer pressure of his chakra. And then he moved. He didn't use the body flicker. He didn't need to. At this level, his natural speed exceeded what the technique could provide. One moment he was standing still. The next, he was behind Neji. Dynamic entry! His kick connected with the Hyuga's rotating defense, and shattered it. The Kaiten wasn't designed to resist this level of force. The chakra shield broke apart like glass, and Neji went flying across the arena, crashing into the far wall with enough impact to crater the stone. Naruto was on him before he could recover, pinning him to the ground with one hand while the other was raised for a finishing blow. "Surrender," he said, his voice steady despite the pain coursing through every fiber of his being. "It's over." Neji stared up at him with wide, uncomprehending eyes. The genius of the Hyuga clan, defeated by the dead last of their academy class. Everything he believed about fate and talent and the immutability of destiny was crumbling around him. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" Naruto's expression softened slightly. "Because I never gave up. Because I refused to accept that my birth defined my future. Because I found people who believed in me, and I worked harder than anyone thought possible." He lowered his raised fist. "Fate isn't something that's decided at birth, Neji. It's something we create through our choices, our efforts, our determination." He stepped back, closing the fourth gate and letting the power drain away. "That's what my sensei taught me. And that's my ninja way." For a long moment, Neji was silent. Then, slowly, something shifted in his expression. "I surrender." The crowd exploded. "Winner Naruto Uzumaki!" The announcement echoed through the arena, but Naruto barely heard it. His body was finally catching up to the damage he had inflicted on himself, his healing factor working overtime to repair what the fourth gate had torn apart. He looked toward the stands, found Guy's face in the crowd. His sensei was crying, openly, unashamedly, tears streaming down his face as he gave Naruto a thumbs up that seemed to shine with its own inner light. "I did it, sensei," Naruto murmured. "I really did it." And then he collapsed. He woke up in the medical tent, Lee's worried face hovering over him. "Naruto! You are awake! How do you feel?" "I'm feeling pretty good." Naruto tried to sit up. "What happened? Did I miss the other matches? You have been unconscious for almost an hour. Your body was severely damaged, even the medical ninja were amazed by how quickly you healed." Lee's expression was complicated. "But Naruto, the fourth gate, that was incredibly dangerous. Using it the first time during the exam, Guy-sensei was very worried." "I know." Naruto closed his eyes, remembering the sensation of power coursing through him, the feeling that he could do anything. "But it was necessary. Neji's defense was too strong for anything less. Just promise me you will not use it recklessly. You are my eternal rival. I do not want to lose you to your own technique." Naruto opened his eyes, meeting Lee's concerned gaze. "I promise, bushy brow. No unnecessary risks." Lee's face brightened. "Good. Now then, you should rest more. The tournament is still ongoing, and there may be more matches for you to fight if you advance far enough." "What about your match?" Lee's expression shifted, determination mixed with excitement. "It was postponed until the second round. But I am ready. I will show everyone what the power of youth can accomplish." Naruto smiled despite his exhaustion. "Go get him, bushy brow." Lee grinned, gave him a thumbs up that was unmistakably influenced by Guy, and bounded out of the tent. Naruto watched him go, feeling a strange mix of pride and affection. His team. His family. No matter what happened next, he knew they would face it together. Chapter 11, The Calm Before. The tournament continued without Naruto, though he watched from the medical tent's entrance. Lee's match came next, a rematch against Kankuro, the Sand Ninja. It didn't matter. Lee opened the first gate within 30 seconds of the match beginning and proceeded to dismantle his opponent's puppets with precision. The fight was over in under 5 minutes, ending with Kankuro unconscious and Lee barely breathing hard. "Next match," the announcer called. "Sasuke Uchiha vs. Gaara of the Sand." This was the match everyone had been waiting for, the last Uchiha against the Sand's Jinchuriki. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation as both combatants took the field. But Naruto's attention was elsewhere. Something felt wrong, a tension in the air that had nothing to do with the tournament. He scanned the crowd, looking for the source of his unease. There. In the VIP section, where the Kazekage sat beside the Hokage. The Sand Leader was too still, too composed. Something about his posture screamed wrongness to Naruto's enhanced instincts. Guy-sensei. He found his teacher nearby, also watching with unusual intensity. Something's not right. I know. Guy's voice was low, pitched for Naruto's ears only. The ANBU have noticed too. They're mobilizing. What's going on? I don't know for certain. But I suspect. He never finished the sentence. The Kazekage moved. In an instant, the leader of the hidden sand had seized the Hokage and leaped to the roof of the arena. Feathers began falling from the sky, a genjutsu, Naruto realized, designed to put the crowd to sleep. He dispelled it immediately, his chakra surging to break the illusion. Around him, the arena descended into chaos. Sand ninja were attacking leaf shinobi throughout the stands. Sound ninja appeared from concealed positions, joining the assault. Somewhere in the distance, explosions rocked the village as the invasion spread beyond the arena walls. Naruto! Lee! Tenten! Guy's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Protect the civilians! Get them to safety! Naruto didn't hesitate. He opened the third gate and dove into the fray. The next few hours were a blur of combat and chaos. Naruto lost track of how many enemies he defeated, how many civilians he shepherded to safety, how many times his healing factor saved him from wounds that should have been fatal. The invasion was massive, far larger than anything he had anticipated, and the village was struggling to contain it. At some point, he found himself fighting alongside Lee against a squad of sound chunin who had cornered a group of academy students. The two of them worked in perfect synchronization, their months of training together translating into seamless combat coordination. This is madness! Lee shouted between strikes. Why would the sand betray their alliance with the leaf? The Kazekage, it wasn't really him. Naruto had pieced together fragments of information from various sources. Someone was impersonating him. The real one might already be dead. Then who? A massive spike of chakra interrupted Lee's question, power so dark and malevolent that it made Naruto's blood run cold. He turned toward the source. And saw Gaara. The sand Jinchuriki was transforming. His body was swelling, distorting, becoming something monstrous. Sand swirled around him in a massive vortex, forming into the shape of something that Naruto recognized from his academy history lessons. The One-Tail. Shikaku. We need to stop him, Naruto said, watching the transformation with horrified fascination. If he completes that transformation, then the entire village will be destroyed. Guy appeared beside them, his expression deadly serious. Lee, Naruto, I need you to engage Gaara. By time for the ANBU to organize a proper response. Guy-sensei! Lee protested. No arguments! Guy's voice brooked no dissent. I have to assist with the Hokage's rescue. You two are the only ones capable of matching Gaara's combat ability. His expression softened slightly. I trust you. Both of you. Naruto nodded, feeling the weight of that trust settle on his shoulders. We won't let you down. I know. Guy's smile was brief but warm. Now go! And then he was gone, racing toward the distant rooftop where the fate of the Hokage was being decided. Naruto turned to Lee. Ready, bushy brow? Lee's expression was fierce, determined. He also opened the third gate, his skin turning red, then replied. Always. Together, they launched themselves toward the monster that Gaara had become. Fighting a partially transformed Jinchuriki was unlike anything Naruto had ever experienced. Gaara's sand moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible for such massive amounts of material. It formed shields, weapons, constructs of crushing force that threatened to overwhelm them with sheer volume. And through it all, Gaara's laughter echoed, mad, broken laughter that spoke of years of suffering and isolation. Is this all you have? The transformed boy taunted. The great taijutsu specialists of the leaf? You're nothing! Nothing! A wave of sand crashed toward them. Lee dodged left while Naruto went right, both attacking the central mass from different angles. Their strikes landed, dispersing some of the sand, but it reformed almost immediately. His defense is absolute, Lee reported, panting from exertion. No matter how hard I hit, the sand just reforms. Then we need to hit harder. Naruto felt the fourth gate calling to him, tempting him with its promise of overwhelming power. But he remembered his promise to Lee, his teacher's warnings about pushing too far. Instead, he tried something else. Lee! On my signal, hit him with everything you have. Understood. Naruto focused inward, reaching for something he had never tried to consciously access before. The Nine-Tails chakra, the demon power that lurked beneath his own healing factor, waiting to be called upon. He had always avoided it, always feared what it might do to him if he drew on its strength. But desperate times called for desperate measures. Now! Lee attacked from the front, his speed pushed to its absolute limit by the third gate. Gaara's sand rose to meet him. And Naruto struck from behind, his body wrapped in a crimson glow that was entirely new. The impact sent shockwaves through the partially formed one tail. For the first time, Gaara screamed in genuine pain rather than mad delight. The sand armor cracked, revealing the human form beneath. What is that? Gaara shrieked. That power, it's like Mother's! Your mother isn't talking to you! Naruto pressed his advantage, landing blow after blow enhanced by the Nine Tails chakra. It's a demon, Gaara! A monster that was sealed inside you, just like one was sealed inside me. The words seemed to hit Gaara harder than the physical attacks. His transformation stuttered, the sand becoming less controlled. You're like me? Yes. But I made a different choice. Naruto seized Gaara's wrist, forcing eye contact despite the sand that swirled around them. I didn't let the loneliness destroy me. I found people who cared about me, who helped me become something more than what I was born as. No one could care about a monster like me. I'm a monster too, Gaara. But my friends, my family, they see past that. Naruto felt tears streaming down his face, mixing with blood and sweat. It's not too late for you. You don't have to be alone. The sand began to recede. Gaara's transformation reversed, his body shrinking back to human proportions. The madness in his eyes was fading, replaced by something that looked almost like hope. How? Gaara whispered. How did you find them? People who could love a monster? I didn't find them. They found me. Naruto released Gaara's wrist, stepping back. Guy-sensei saw something in me that no one else did. Lee and Tenten became my family. They taught me that being born a certain way doesn't mean you have to stay that way. Gaara stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. Lee appeared beside Naruto, his expression a complex mix of exhaustion and concern. Is it over? I think so. Naruto knelt beside Gaara's unconscious form. He's not evil, Lee. He's just broken. Like I was before Team Guy. Then perhaps he can be fixed as well. Lee's voice was thoughtful. With time. With care. With people who believe in him. Yeah. Naruto looked up at the village around them, the fires, the destruction, the chaos of the invasion. But first, we need to end this war. The invasion was eventually repelled, though not without cost. The third Hokage fell in battle against Orochimaru, the rogue Sannin who had been impersonating the Kazekage and orchestrating the entire attack. His funeral was held 3 days later, a somber affair that reminded everyone of the price that shinobi paid for peace. Naruto stood among the mourners, rain falling on his bowed head, and thought about the old man who had protected him his entire life. Hiruzen Sarutobi hadn't been perfect. He had allowed the village to ostracize Naruto, had kept secrets that might have helped, but he had also been kind when kindness was rare. Goodbye, old man, Naruto murmured. I'll make you proud. I promise. Beside him, Guy placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. No words were needed. Team Guy stood together in the rain, mourning the past while preparing for an uncertain future. The weeks following the invasion were a time of rebuilding and reflection. The alliance with the sand, revealed to have been manipulated by Orochimaru all along, was cautiously restored. Gaara was recalled to his village, but not before seeking out Naruto for a brief, awkward conversation that ended with the Sand Jinchuriki promising to try and be better. You showed me that monsters can become human, Gaara said. I will not forget. Naruto watched him leave, hoping that the other boy would find his own team Guy, people who could help him heal from years of isolation and abuse. As for the chunin exams, they had technically never been completed. The invasion had interrupted the tournament before a final winner could be declared. However, the Leafs leadership, now headed by an interim council while they searched for a new Hokage, had decided to award promotions based on performance during both the exams and the invasion itself. Naruto was promoted to chunin. Lee was promoted to chunin. Neither of them particularly cared about the rank. What mattered was that they had proven themselves when it counted, had fought for their village and their friends when the stakes couldn't have been higher. You have grown beyond my wildest expectations, Guy told them during a private celebration at their training ground. Both of you have become shinobi worthy of the Leaf's will of fire. We had a good teacher, Naruto replied, grinning despite his exhaustion. The best teacher. Indeed you did. Guy's tears were flowing freely now. Such beautiful youth. Such magnificent students. I am truly blessed. Lee was crying too, of course. Even Tenten was dabbing at her eyes, though she denied it when asked. And Naruto stood among them, surrounded by the people who had become his family, and felt something he had never experienced before the day he met Guy-sensei. He felt at home. Chapter 12, The Fifth Hokage. 2 weeks after the invasion, the village received word that a new Hokage had been found. Tsunade Senju, one of the legendary Sannin, had agreed to return to the Leaf and take up the mantle of leadership. Her arrival was a major event. Crowds gathered along the main road to catch a glimpse of the woman who would guide them into an uncertain future. Naruto watched from a rooftop as the procession made its way toward the Hokage Tower. Tsunade was a striking figure, blonde hair, sharp features, and an aura of power that seemed to make the air itself tremble. "That's her, huh?" he murmured. "The legendary medical ninja? The strongest kunoichi in history, according to some accounts," Tenten replied from beside him. "She's also supposed to be one of the best taijutsu fighters alive. Her super strength technique is said to be devastating." "Think she'd spar with me?" Tenten snorted. "I think she'd crush you like a bug. Even with your healing, I doubt you could take one of her punches." "Challenge accepted." "That wasn't a Naruto, wait!" But Naruto was already moving, leaping from the rooftop toward the procession below. Tsunade's first impression of Naruto Uzumaki was that he was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The blonde genin, no chunin now, she'd been briefed on the recent promotions, had appeared directly in her path, dropping from a nearby building with a grin that bordered on manic. "Lady Tsunade! I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I challenge you to a spar!" The escort ninja tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Tsunade raised a hand to stop them, studying the young man before her with curious eyes. "You're the Jinchuriki," she said. "The Nine-Tails container. I'm a lot of things." Naruto's grin didn't waver. "Including someone who's been training to become the strongest taijutsu user in history. I want to test myself against the best." Tsunade felt her lips quirking despite herself. The kid had guts, she'd give him that. And there was something in his eyes, something that reminded her of. No. She wasn't going to think about that. Not now. "You think you can handle a spar with me, brat? I know I can't win. But that's not the point." Naruto's expression grew serious. "I need to know how far I have to go. I need to understand what real power looks like, so I have something to aim for." Tsunade stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she began to laugh. "You've got nerve, kid. I like that." She cracked her knuckles, her smile turning dangerous. "Fine. One hit. If you can land a single hit on me, I'll acknowledge your potential. But if you can't, I'll do 500 laps around the village on my hands while singing the national anthem. That's oddly specific. I learned from the best." Tsunade shook her head, still chuckling. "All right, brat. Let's see what you've got." The escort ninja cleared a space, creating an impromptu arena in the middle of the street. Crowds gathered to watch, murmuring with excitement and concern. This was their new Hokage's first public appearance, and already she was being challenged by the village's most notorious troublemaker. Naruto settled into his fighting stance, his expression focused. He didn't open any gates, not yet. He wanted to test her reactions first, gauge her speed and power before committing to an all-out assault. "Begin!" Naruto attacked. He moved fast, faster than most jonin could track, thanks to months of intensive training. His fist shot toward Tsunade's face with precision and power. She caught it. Her hand closed around his knuckles like a vice, stopping his momentum completely. And then she twisted. Naruto felt himself being lifted, spun, and hurled through the air. He hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact, and was back on his feet before the dust settled. "Not bad reflexes," Tsunade acknowledged. "But you'll need more than speed to touch me." Naruto opened the first gate. Power surged through him, and he attacked again, faster this time, more aggressive. His strikes came in rapid combinations that would have overwhelmed most opponents. Tsunade deflected them all. Her movements were minimal, economical, each block redirecting his attacks with precisely the right amount of force. She wasn't even trying, Naruto realized. She was toying with him. "Is that all?" she asked, sounding almost disappointed. "I heard you defeated the Hyuga prodigy with some impressive technique. Show me." Naruto's eyes narrowed. She was baiting him, testing him to see how he responded to pressure. Fine. He'd show her. He opened the second gate, then the third. His skin flushed red, his muscles swelled with power. The crowd gasped at the transformation, the visible aura of energy that surrounded his body. And then he attacked with everything he had. For a few incredible seconds, he actually seemed to be holding his own. His strikes were landing, not solidly, but touching, forcing Tsunade to actually defend rather than simply redirect. Her smile widened. "Now that's more like it." She moved. One moment she was in front of him. The next, her fist was buried in his stomach. The impact was beyond anything Naruto had ever felt. It was like being hit by a mountain, like every bone in his body shattering simultaneously. He flew backward, crashed through a building, and kept going, through 2 more walls before finally coming to a stop in a pile of rubble. His healing factor activated immediately, working to repair the catastrophic damage. Bones knit themselves together. Ruptured organs rebuilt. Within 30 seconds he was staggering back to his feet, his body restored but his pride thoroughly bruised. Tsunade was waiting for him at the edge of the destruction, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Your healing factor is impressive," she said. "And your taijutsu is far beyond what I expected from a chunin. But you're relying too much on raw power. Against an opponent who can match or exceed that power, you'll need more than just the gates." Naruto spat blood. His healing factor hadn't quite finished repairing the internal damage, and forced himself to stand straight. "Then teach me." "Excuse me?" "Teach me." His voice was fierce, determined. "You're one of the Sannin. You've got knowledge and experience that I can't get anywhere else. I want to learn from you." Tsunade's eyebrow rose. "I'm the Hokage, brat. I don't have time to be anyone's personal instructor. Then fit me in whenever you can. Morning. Evening. Middle of the night. I don't care." Naruto met her eyes squarely. "I'm going to become the strongest shinobi in history. And I'll take help from anyone willing to give it." For a long moment, Tsunade was silent. Her expression was unreadable, her thoughts hidden behind years of experience and carefully constructed walls. Then she laughed again, louder this time, with genuine amusement. "You really are something else, kid." She shook her head slowly. "Fine. I'll give you some training when I can spare the time. But I warn you, I don't go easy on anyone. I wouldn't want you to. We'll see if you still feel that way after our first session." Tsunade turned away, resuming her interrupted procession toward the Hokage Tower. "Now get out of my sight. I've got a village to run." Naruto watched her go, a fierce grin spreading across his battered face. He had been beaten, thoroughly, completely, embarrassingly beaten. But he had also gained something invaluable. A new teacher. A new challenge. A new level to aim for. The future had never looked brighter. True to her word, Tsunade began training Naruto whenever her schedule allowed, which wasn't often, given her responsibilities as Hokage. But even sporadic sessions with one of the Sannin were worth their weight in gold. Her focus was on refining his technique rather than building raw power. "You've got plenty of strength," she explained during one session. "What you lack is precision. Control. The ability to use exactly the right amount of force for each situation." The training was brutal. Tsunade didn't hold back, and Naruto's healing factor was tested repeatedly as she pushed him beyond his perceived limits. But the results were undeniable. His combat efficiency improved dramatically, his chakra control, still his weakest area, showed signs of development, and his understanding of anatomy and weak points expanded significantly. "You're a natural at taijutsu," Tsunade admitted one evening, as Naruto lay on the training ground recovering from another devastating beating. "Better than most shinobi I've ever met. If you keep developing at this rate, you might actually become something special." "Just something special?" Naruto managed, despite his healing factor still working on his cracked ribs. "I'm aiming for something legendary." Tsunade snorted. "You've got the arrogance for it, at least." But there was something in her eyes, something almost like approval. Meanwhile, Team Guy's other training continued as well. Lee had reached a plateau in his gate training. He could reliably open the 5th gate. "Your flames of youth burn brightly," Guy assured him. "But even the brightest flame can be extinguished if pushed too far. We must build your foundation before reaching for higher heights." Tenten, for her part, had developed several new weapon techniques that made her even more dangerous at range. Her summoning speed had increased dramatically, and she had begun experimenting with specialized weapons designed to counter specific opponent types. "I can't match you guys in direct combat," she admitted during one team training session. "But I can make sure you never have to fight alone. That's my role: support, suppression, and making sure anyone who gets past you has to deal with about 50 sharp objects." "That is an excellent role," Lee declared. "We are a team. Together, we complement each other's weaknesses and enhance each other's strengths." Naruto nodded in agreement. Despite his individual growth, despite the new training with Tsunade, he never forgot where his true strength came from. Team Guy. His family. The months passed quickly. Naruto's reputation grew as he completed mission after mission, his unique abilities making him invaluable for assignments that required both combat power and survivability. He became known throughout the shinobi world as the Undying Flame, a taijutsu specialist who could take any amount of damage and keep fighting. The name amused him more than it should have. But even as his fame spread, he never lost sight of his ultimate goal: becoming Hokage. Protecting those he loved. Proving to everyone, to the village, to himself, that the demon brat from the orphanage could become something great. And always, in the back of his mind, he felt the presence of the fifth gate. The gate of limit. He hadn't opened it yet. Hadn't even attempted it. Guy's warnings echoed in his memory. Each subsequent gate was more dangerous than the last, and the fifth gate represented a significant threshold. Beyond it, even Naruto's healing factor might not be able to compensate. But he knew, with absolute certainty, that one day he would need that power. One day, he would face an enemy that required everything he had. And when that day came, he would be ready. The story of Naruto Uzumaki, the shinobi with the healing factor, the student of Might Guy, the bearer of the nine tails and master of the 8 inner gates, that story was still being written. But its beginning was clear. It had started with a strange man in green, a smile bright as the sun, and an offer that changed everything. I see a young man who has been told his entire life that he is worthless. And I see those lies for what they are. Those words had saved him. Had given him purpose, family, hope. And now, standing on the threshold of his future, Naruto carried them with him like a beacon. A reminder of what he was fighting for. A promise of what he would become. The flames of youth burned eternal. Chapter 13, New Horizons. 3 years had passed since the chunin exams. Naruto stood at the edge of the Hokage monument, looking out over the village that had once rejected him and now celebrated him as one of its rising stars. The view was breathtaking, the sprawl of buildings, the distant training grounds, the mountain itself with its carved faces of the Hokage watching over everything. 4 faces now. Tsunade's had been added last year, completing the sequence. One day, Naruto murmured. Mine will be up there too. Talking to yourself again? Tenten's voice came from behind him. That's usually Lee's thing. Naruto turned, grinning at his teammate. Tenten had changed over the years, grown taller, more confident, her skills with weapons now approaching legendary status. She was considered one of the best projectile specialists in the entire shinobi world. Just thinking about the future. You know how it is. I do. Tenten came to stand beside him, her gaze following his toward the monument. Hard to believe how far we've come. Remember when you first joined the team? How could I forget? Guy-sensei almost killed me with that dynamic entry. And now you can do one that makes his look tame. Tenten shook her head, a slight smile playing at her lips. We've all changed so much. For the better? For the better. She was quiet for a moment then. Lee says there's a mission briefing in an hour. S-rank. Naruto's eyebrows rose. S-rank missions were rare, reserved for situations that threatened the very foundations of the village or the balance of power between nations. Team Guy had completed several over the years, but each one had pushed them to their absolute limits. Any details? Not yet. Tsunade wanted to brief us personally. Tenten's expression grew serious. Whatever it is, it must be big. Then we'd better not keep her waiting. The Hokage's office was crowded when they arrived. Guy and Lee were already there, along with Kakashi Hatake and his team, Sasuke, Sakura, and the replacement member who had joined after their original third was... No, Naruto didn't want to think about that particular tragedy. Tsunade sat behind her desk, her expression uncharacteristically grave. Now that everyone's here, Tsunade began. Let me explain the situation. 3 days ago, we received intelligence that the Akatsuki has begun moving on their primary objective. The room went silent. The Akatsuki, the organization of S-rank missing nin that had been quietly building power for years. Their goals were shrouded in mystery, but their methods were brutally clear. They hunted Jinchuriki. Their primary objective? Naruto asked, though he already knew the answer. The tailed beasts. All of them. Tsunade's eyes met his directly. Including you, Naruto. So they're finally making their move. Naruto's voice was calm, but his hands had curled into fists at his sides. They've already captured 2 Jinchuriki, the 4 tails and the 5 tails. Both were extracted and killed in the process. Tsunade's expression darkened. We believe they intend to capture the remaining beasts in rapid succession, before the hidden villages can organize a proper defense. Then we organize a defense, Guy said simply. Naruto is not alone. He has all of us. That's exactly what I'm counting on. Tsunade stood, moving to a large map on the wall. Our intelligence suggests the Akatsuki will target the remaining Jinchuriki in a specific order, based on the strength of their respective villages. The Hidden Cloud's 8 tails container and the Hidden Leaf's 9 tails container, that's you, Naruto, are believed to be the final targets. Which means they'll be coming for the others first, Kakashi observed. Gaara. Among others. The Kazekage has already been contacted and has agreed to increase security measures. But the Akatsuki are patient and resourceful. They'll find a way. Tsunade turned back to face the assembled shinobi. Which is why we're not waiting for them to come to us. We're going on the offensive. Naruto felt his heart rate accelerate. An offensive against the Akatsuki? A coordinated strike against their known bases of operations, timed to coincide with similar actions by our allies. If we can disrupt their infrastructure, slow their operations, maybe even eliminate some of their members. Tsunade's smile was sharp. We might just save some lives. What's our assignment? Lee asked, practically vibrating with anticipation. Team Guy and Team Kakashi will be working together on this mission. Your target is an Akatsuki outpost located in the Land of Rivers, specifically, the base of operations for 2 members we've positively identified. Tsunade tapped a location on the map. Haiden and Kakuzu. Both S-rank. Both extremely dangerous. Haiden is supposedly immortal. Kakashi added, his single visible eye grave. He belongs to some kind of death cult and can survive any physical damage. Kakuzu is a missing nin from Takigakure who has somehow lived for over a century. He's known for his ability to steal other shinobi's hearts and incorporate them into his own body. An immortal and a heart stealer. Naruto grinned despite the seriousness of the situation. Sounds like a fun time. This is serious, Naruto. Sakura admonished. These aren't ordinary opponents. Even with both teams working together. I know. Naruto's grin faded, replaced by something harder. But I've been waiting for this chance. The Akatsuki has been hunting my kind for years. It's time we started hunting them back. Sasuke, who had been silent throughout the briefing, finally spoke. When do we leave? Tomorrow at dawn. You have tonight to prepare. Tsunade's expression softened slightly. I won't lie to you, this mission is dangerous. Some of you may not come back. But if we succeed, we could change the course of this shadow war. Then we succeed. Guy declared, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. The flames of youth will not be extinguished by any foe, no matter how powerful. Guy-sensei. Lee's eyes were streaming with tears of determination. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. They're doing the thing again. Tenten muttered. They do that. Sakura agreed. Despite the tension, despite the weight of the mission ahead, Naruto found himself smiling. This was his team. His family. And together, they were going to take the fight to the enemy. Tomorrow, the Akatsuki would learn what it meant to face the power of the Hidden Leaf's youth. The journey to the Land of Rivers took 3 days of hard travel. The 2 teams moved as one unit, their combined capabilities covering each other's weaknesses. Kakashi handled reconnaissance, his dogs scouting ahead for signs of enemy activity. Tenten maintained a constant watch on their flanks, ready to unleash hell at a moment's notice. Sasuke and Naruto took point, their enhanced senses alert for any hint of ambush. Guy and Lee brought up the rear, their incredible speed allowing them to respond to threats from any direction. Sakura stayed in the center, ready to provide medical support if needed. It was, Naruto reflected, a formidable force. 8 shinobi, all battle-tested, all dedicated to the mission. If anyone could take on 2 Akatsuki members and win, it was them. But he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. You sense it too? Sasuke murmured, appearing beside Naruto during a brief rest stop. Yeah. Someone's been tracking us since we crossed into the Land of Rivers. Naruto's eyes scanned the surrounding forest. Can't pinpoint them, though. Akatsuki, probably. They know we're coming. Sasuke's expression was unreadable. They're letting us approach their base. It's a trap. Obviously. Sasuke's lips quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. But sometimes the only way out of a trap is through it. Naruto studied his former rival, the boy who had once been his opposite in every way, now a man who had walked his own path of pain and growth. They had never been friends, exactly. But there was a mutual respect there, forged through years of parallel struggles. You've gotten stronger, Naruto observed. I can feel it. So have you. Sasuke's eyes flickered to Naruto. He remembered when Naruto shattered Neiji's defense, he also traded blows with Tsunade herself. Your healing factor, is it really as absolute as they say? Nothing's absolute. But it's pretty close. Naruto flexed his fingers. Why? You planning to test it? Maybe. After we finish this mission. Sasuke turned away. I've always wondered how I'd match up against someone who could survive my strongest techniques. You're on. Naruto grinned. But don't expect me to go easy. I never do. The Akatsuki base was hidden in a cave system beneath an abandoned temple. Kakashi's reconnaissance had confirmed the location, as well as the presence of at least 2 powerful chakra signatures within. The teams gathered in a concealed position nearby, finalizing their strategy. We go in hard and fast, Kakashi explained, his voice low. No time for them to call for backup, no time for them to prepare their more elaborate techniques. Naruto and Lee will engage directly, using their speed to overwhelm. Sasuke and I will provide support and prevent escape. Guy-sensei. I will be ready to deploy the gates if the situation requires it. Guy confirmed, his expression unusually serious. Tenten, Sakura, you're our ranged support and medical backup. Stay mobile, stay alive. Kakashi's eye swept across the assembled shinobi. Any questions? There were none. Then let's move. They approached the temple in formation, their movements silent and coordinated. The entrance to the cave system was hidden behind the main altar, a secret passage that Kakashi's dogs had identified earlier. Naruto was the first one through. The tunnel beyond was dark, cramped, and reeked of something unpleasant. He opened the first gate to enhance his senses, pushing through the discomfort as his perception sharpened. Movement ahead. 2 figures waiting. They know we're here, he reported quietly. Looks like they're not running. Arrogant bastards. Sasuke's Sharingan spun to life, its crimson glow casting strange shadows on the tunnel walls. Let's show them why that's a mistake. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber, lit by torches that cast flickering shadows across ancient stonework. At the far end, 2 figures stood waiting, one tall and muscular with stitched skin and red-green eyes, the other smaller and more manic-looking, a 3-bladed scythe resting on his shoulder. Well, the smaller one, Haiden, said, his smile showing too many teeth. Look who came to visit. Is this the legendary Nine-Tails brat? And the copy ninja? And the Sharingan brat? The larger one, Kakuzu, studied them with cold calculation. They sent quite a force for us, Haiden. Good. The more the merrier. Haiden's smile widened. Lord Jashin will be pleased with so many sacrifices. Naruto stepped forward, his body already primed for combat. You're the ones who've been hunting my kind. The ones who killed those other Jinchuriki. Guilty as charged. Haiden laughed. And you'll be next, demon brat. Your precious Biju is going to. Naruto opened the second and third gates simultaneously. The chamber shook with the force of his transformation, loose stones falling from the ceiling as his aura blazed to life. He moved before Haiden could finish his sentence, crossing the distance between them in an instant. His fist connected with Haiden's face. The impact sent the Akatsuki member flying backward, crashing into the far wall with enough force to collapse an entire section of stonework. But Naruto didn't let up. He was already following, ready to continue the assault. Naruto, wait! Kakashi's voice. Haiden can't be killed conventionally. I know! Naruto's response was accompanied by another devastating punch. But he can feel pain. Indeed, Haiden was screaming, not in fear, but in something that sounded almost like ecstasy. Yes. The pain is exquisite. Lord Jashin, witness this glorious. Naruto hit him again. And again. And again. Meanwhile, the rest of the assault team engaged Kakuzu. The heart-stealing shinobi proved to be a formidable opponent, releasing multiple masked creatures from his body, each one containing a stolen heart and the elemental affinity it possessed. Fire, wind, lightning, earth, they attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. But Team Guy and Team 7 were equally coordinated. Lee's speed countered the wind and fire attacks, his strikes shattering the masks before they could complete their techniques. Sasuke's lightning-enhanced attacks disabled the earth creature, while Kakashi went directly for Kakuzu himself. Tenten's weapons rained down from above, forcing the remaining creature to defend rather than attack. Sakura waited for her moment, healing chakra ready for anyone who needed it. It was chaos. Beautiful, coordinated chaos. And somehow, impossibly, they were winning. The battle stretched on for what felt like hours. Haiden proved almost impossible to permanently incapacitate. Every wound healed, every broken bone reknit, every injury that should have been fatal was shrugged off with manic laughter. But Naruto's relentless assault prevented him from completing any of his ritual techniques, keeping him off balance and unable to use his true killing power. You're immortal, Naruto acknowledged between strikes. But so am I, effectively. So we can do this forever if you want. You think you're like me? Haiden's voice was incredulous. Your pathetic healing is nothing compared to Lord Jashin's blessing. Then let's test that theory. Naruto was training non-stop for 3 years. He opened the 4th gate, then the 5th, the 6th, and finally he went open the 7th gate. The transformation was visible. His body was surrounded by a glowing blue aura caused by his sweat immediately evaporating due to body heat. Haiden's expression shifted for the first time. He was surprised, maybe even concerned. What the? Naruto's fist moved faster than even immortal eyes could track. The impact didn't just send Haiden flying, it atomized the section of wall behind him, created a shockwave that cracked stone throughout the chamber, and left a crater in the floor where they had been standing. When the dust cleared, Haiden was still alive, but barely recognizable. You'll pay for this. The Akatsuki member wheezed through destroyed vocal cords. Lord Jashin will. Take a message to your Lord Jashin. Naruto interrupted, his voice cold despite the agony of maintaining the fourth gate. Tell him the Nine-Tails sends his regards. One final strike. Haiden's body shattered. It wouldn't kill him, nothing could kill him permanently, but it would take him months, maybe years, to reassemble. And without his head, he couldn't perform any jutsu or curse rituals. Problem solved. Naruto closed the seventh gate, exhausted while his healing factor worked to repair the damage. He turned to assess the rest of the battle. Kakuzu was struggling. 3 of his 4 heart creatures had been destroyed, and Kakashi was pressing him hard with a technique Naruto didn't recognize, some kind of lightning blade that hummed with incredible power. Let me finish this, Sasuke was saying, his Sharingan spinning wildly. I have something I want to test. Kakashi hesitated, then nodded and stepped back. Sasuke raised his hand, and lightning began to gather, not the focus blade of the Chidori, but something else. Something new. The technique that formed was devastating. A spear of lightning that shrieked through the air like a living thing, tracking Kakuzu even as he tried to dodge. It pierced his final heart creature, then continued through to strike the man himself. Kakuzu of the Akatsuki fell. The aftermath was anticlimactic. They secured the base, recovered whatever intelligence could be salvaged, and prepared for the long journey home. Haiden's scattered remains were sealed in separate containers, to be distributed across multiple secure locations where they could never be reassembled. That was intense, Sakura said, her hands still glowing with healing chakra as she treated the various injuries sustained during the battle. That was a victory, Kakashi corrected. A significant one. 2 Akatsuki members neutralized in a single engagement. And valuable intelligence recovered, Sasuke added, examining a scroll they had found in Kakuzu's belongings. Information about the other Akatsuki members, their capabilities, their plans. Then the mission is a success, Guy declared, his usual enthusiasm tempered by exhaustion. The flames of youth have triumphed once again. Guy-sensei! Lee's tears were flowing freely. We did it! We actually did it! Naruto listened to his teammates celebrate, but his mind was elsewhere. The fourth gate had pushed him harder than ever before, and his body was still recovering from the strain. But more than that, he was thinking about what came next. The Akatsuki was still out there. Reduced, yes, but not destroyed. And they would keep coming, keep hunting, until every Jinchuriki was captured and every tailed beast extracted. Unless he stopped them first. Hey! Tenten appeared beside him, her expression concerned. You okay? Yeah. Naruto forced a smile. Just thinking. About the future? About what I need to do to protect everyone. His gaze drifted toward the east, toward the distant village that had become his home. The Akatsuki won't stop. They'll keep sending people after me, after Gaara, after every Jinchuriki they can find. So what are you going to do? Naruto was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, his smile became something fiercer. Something more determined. I'm going to become strong enough that they wouldn't dare. Strong enough to protect everyone I care about. He clenched his fist, feeling the power that lurked beneath his skin, the gates, the Nine-Tails, the healing factor that made him unique in all the world. I'm going to master the 8 inner gates. All of them. Naruto. 8th gate. I know. It could kill even me. He met Tenten's eyes directly. But I have to try. For the village. For my friends. For everyone who's counting on me to be strong enough when it matters. Tenten was silent for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. Then I'll help you. Lee will help you. Guy-sensei will help you. She placed a hand on his shoulder. We're Team Guy, remember? Together, there's nothing we can't accomplish. Despite his exhaustion, despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, Naruto felt warmth spreading through his chest. His team. His family. No matter what challenges lay ahead, he knew he wouldn't face them alone. And that made all the difference. Epilogue, 5 years later. The morning sun rose over Konoha, painting the village in shades of gold and orange. Naruto stood before the Hokage monument, but his perspective had changed. He was no longer looking up at the carved faces from the village below. He was standing among them, on the summit of the mountain itself, looking down at the world he had sworn to protect. 5 years had passed since the battle against Haiden and Kakuzu. 5 years of training, of fighting, of pushing himself beyond every limit. The Akatsuki had been destroyed, finally, definitively, in a climactic battle that had cost many lives but saved many more. He had opened the 8th gate during that final fight. Had felt his life force burning away, his body consuming itself in exchange for power beyond imagining. For one brief, terrible, glorious moment, he had been a god, capable of defeating any enemy, of protecting everyone he loved. And then his healing factor had done something impossible. It had started regenerating even as the 8th gate burned him from within. His cells, enhanced by years of gate training and the Ninetales' influence, had evolved beyond their original parameters. They had kept pace with the destruction, matching it cell for cell, rebuilding as fast as they were consumed. He had survived the Gate of Death. The first person in history to open all 8 gates and live to tell about it. The aftermath had been complicated. His body had needed months to fully recover, even with his enhanced healing. And the political consequences of his actions, the enemies he had made, the allies he had gained, the balance of power he had disrupted, were still being felt today. But he had done it. He had become strong enough to protect everyone he cared about. Strong enough to change the world. And now, standing on the mountain where his predecessors' faces were carved, he could finally see his dream within reach. The view is beautiful, isn't it? Naruto turned to find Tsunade standing behind him, her expression soft with something that might have been pride. It is, he agreed. Though I prefer looking at it from down there. Easier to see the people. Tsunade chuckled. Always the sentimentalist. She moved to stand beside him, her gaze sweeping across the village below. The council made their decision, you know. It was unanimous. Naruto's heart stuttered. Already? They've been discussing it for months. Your actions in the final battle, your growth over the years, your dedication to the village. Tsunade's smile widened. You've more than earned this, Naruto. But I'm still young. You're 20 years old and you've accomplished more than most shinobi do in a lifetime. You've mastered techniques that were thought impossible. You've defeated enemies that threatened the entire shinobi world. Tsunade placed a hand on his shoulder. You're ready. Naruto felt tears pricking at his eyes. He blinked them away, unwilling to let this moment be obscured. The inauguration is scheduled for next week. Tsunade continued. I'll be stepping down, passing the hat to you officially. But as of this moment, by the authority of the Fire Daimyo and the unanimous decision of the village council. She paused, letting the moment stretch. Congratulations, 7th Hokage. Naruto's breath caught. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, had fought for it, bled for it, nearly died for it countless times. And now, finally, impossibly. Thank you? He managed. For everything. For taking a chance on a loudmouth brat who challenged you in the street. For teaching me, training me, believing in me. Thank God for that. Tsunade replied. He saw your potential before anyone else. He made you who you are. He did. Naruto's thoughts drifted to his sensei, to the man who had changed his life with a single act of faith. I need to tell him. And Lee and Tenten. They need to know. They're waiting for you at the training ground. Your training ground. Tsunade's expression was knowing. I had a feeling you'd want to share this with them. Of course she had. Tsunade had always understood him better than he gave her credit for. One more thing. Tsunade's voice grew serious. Being Hokage isn't what you think it is. It's not just power and prestige. It's responsibility. It's sacrifice. It's making impossible decisions and living with the consequences. I know. Do you? Her eyes searched his face. You'll have to send shinobi on missions they might not return from. You'll have to negotiate with people you despise. You'll have to put the village's needs above your own desires, every single time, no matter how much it hurts. I know, Naruto repeated, and this time there was steel in his voice. I've watched you do it for years. I've seen what it costs. And I'm willing to pay that price. He met her gaze squarely. Because this village, these people, they're worth it. They're worth everything. Tsunade studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Yes. I believe they are. She stepped back, her posture shifting from mentor to subordinate. Then I leave them in your hands, Lord 7th. The title sent a shiver down Naruto's spine. Lord 7th. Hokage. It was real. It was finally real. Now go. Tsunade continued, her smile returning. Your team is waiting. And knowing Guy, he's probably already crying. The training ground was exactly as Naruto remembered it, the clearing where he had first learned to open the gates, where he had trained alongside Lee and Tenten, where Guy's booming voice had echoed with encouragement and challenges. His team was there, just as Tsunade had said. Guy, older now but no less enthusiastic, his green jumpsuit as vibrant as ever. Lee, who had become one of the most feared taijutsu specialists in the world, his own mastery of the gates now rivaling his teacher's. Tenten, whose weapon skills had made her famous across the elemental nations, her analytical mind now matched by combat experience that few could equal. They were all smiling. All waiting. Naruto! Guy's voice boomed across the clearing. We have heard the news. Your flames of youth have finally achieved their ultimate glory. Guy-sensei. Naruto felt tears threatening again. Everyone. Lee bounded forward, tears already streaming down his face. Naruto! You did it! You actually did it! I am so proud to have you as my eternal rival. Thanks, bushy brow. Naruto embraced him, not caring about the tears or the emotion or how it might look. I couldn't have done it without you. Or without any of us. Tenten added, joining the embrace. We're a team, remember? Together, there's nothing we can't accomplish. Guy wrapped his massive arms around all three of them, pulling them into a crushing group hug that threatened to crack ribs. My beautiful students, he sobbed. You have all grown into magnificent shinobi. Watching your journeys has been the greatest honor of my life. Guy-sensei, they chorused. Lee, Tenten, Naruto, Guy-sensei. It was ridiculous. It was emotional. It was everything Naruto had ever wanted, wrapped up in green spandex and tears and the warmth of a family he had chosen. When they finally separated, wiping their eyes and trying to compose themselves, Naruto looked at each of them in turn, the people who had changed his life, who had given him purpose and belonging when he had nothing. I want you to know something, he said, his voice thick. When I become Hokage officially, when I take that hat and put on those robes, I'm going to be thinking of you. All of you. Because everything I've accomplished, everything I've become, it started here. In this training ground. With this team. With these flames of youth. Guy added, his smile brilliant despite his tears. Yeah. Naruto laughed, shaking his head. With these flames of youth. He looked toward the village, his village now, or it would be soon. The place that had once rejected him, feared him, hated him for something he couldn't control. And now they were going to trust him with their future. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was everything he had ever dreamed of. Come on, he said, turning back to his team. We've got a lot to do before the inauguration. And I want to spend as much time as possible with the people who matter most. Then let us begin with a celebratory training session, Lee declared. 5,000 push-ups, followed by maybe something a little less intense, Tenten suggested dryly. We are supposed to be celebrating, after all. Celebration through physical excellence is still celebration. That's not how that works. Actually, I think it sounds great. Naruto grinned, dropping into a push-up position. Come on, everyone. For old time's sake. Guy was already beside him. That is the spirit. Let the flames of youth burn eternal. Yes, Guy-sensei. And there, in the training ground where it had all begun, the future 7th Hokage did push-ups alongside the people who had made him who he was. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the clearing. The story had come full circle. And somewhere, in the deepest part of Naruto's heart, he could have sworn he heard the Nine Tails rumbling with something that sounded almost like approval. Thank you for reading. The Flames of Youth Burn Eternal.